Welcome to my channel. Like and subscribe and comment down below new novel you want to listen. The only player in the Marvel Universe. Chapter 1 Players in Marvel. It was a dark and windy night, inside a secluded manor. The master bedroom door slowly opened, and a figure swaggered in. This person was wearing a thick floral cotton padded jacket, but on the bottom he wore a pair of bright pink shorts and a pair of yellowish-brown Crocs. This outfit isn't exactly ugly, but it's uniquely ugly. What's most eye-catching is the huge yellow dog head mask he's wearing, with a cheeky expression that exudes a strange sense of mockery. The kobold walked straight to the desk, turned on the computer, took out a USB drive from his pocket, plugged it in, and a progress bar immediately appeared on the screen. While waiting, he felt his phone vibrate in his pocket. Crooked. Mew, this is Nick Fury. What's your current status? Infiltrated the target location and are retrieving mission items. No one discovered it. Just as Mew was about to answer, the bathroom door in the master bedroom suddenly clicked open, and a bearded man wrapped in a bathrobe stared at him in horror. Damn it! Who are you? How did you get in? Where are the bodyguards? Bodyguards! Bodyguards! Boom! A gunshot rang out crisply and cleanly. The kobold calmly holstered his pistol and said into his phone, "Don't worry, no one will notice." Nick Fury was silent for a few seconds on the other end of the phone, then his voice deepened, "After the mission is over, go back to headquarters." Okay. Mew hung up the phone, and just as the loading bar on the computer screen finished, he deftly unplugged the USB drive. The next moment, a cold, mechanical voice rang in his mind. Daily mission: steal important intelligence completed. Rewards: 500 experience points, 10 SHIELD reputation, 1 C4 bomb. Tisk, another piece of trashy reward. Mew curled his lips, glanced at the corpse on the ground, and couldn't help but sigh, but this game is really well made. Look at the death feedback of the NPCs, it's just like the real thing. I don't believe that the game planners have never killed anyone. In fact, he was immersed in a holographic virtual game called Marvel World. By 2065, holographic virtual game technology will be widespread, allowing players to experience a virtual world that is almost 100% realistic. As a hardcore gamer with millions of fans, Mew has completed countless games and is quite well known in the international gaming community. 2 months ago, a game company under Marvel approached him, inviting him to test their new game, which was touted as having unprecedentedly high freedom, and promised him a multi-million-dollar prize if he could complete the game on his first try. To be honest, Mew doesn't know much about Marvel. After all, by his time, the Marvel story had gone through countless generations of updates, and the original characters had long since disappeared. The most popular superhero right now is the 7th Iron Man, named Iron Blackheart, a black single mother with gender dysphoria, severe alcoholism, obesity, multiple transgender history, 3 divorces, and 5 children. He forms a family with the 8th-generation Captain America, who is gay, a vegetarian animal rights activist, a pioneer of the feminist movement, a Catholic, and has 1/8 Native American ancestry, and shouts family every day. This combination of superheroes with overflowing political correctness is something that only those on the other side of the ocean find fascinating. Mew simply couldn't muster any interest in it. Despite this, Mew signed the agreement without hesitation and lay down in the top-of-the-line virtual gaming pod provided by the other party that same day. No way! They gave us so much! At the start of the game, the system offers several identity options: Hydra Spy, SHIELD Agent, Stark Industries Employee, Hell's Kitchen Resident, and Midtown High School Student. Mew casually clicked on an option and started the game. After 2 months of playing, Mew had to admit that the game's degree of freedom was indeed ridiculously high. There is no tutorial or guidance, players must figure out all the operations and storylines on their own. The most outrageous thing is that so many days have passed and he hasn't even seen a trace of the main quest. If the game system hadn't repeatedly assured him that there was a main storyline, Mew would have suspected he was playing a spy simulation game. Speaking of which, this game doesn't seem to have an exit button, Mew said, puzzled. The system's voice sounded at the right time. We sincerely apologize, there was a minor issue at the start of the game that caused a system bug. We are currently working hard to fix it. Will I be alright? Mew's heart skipped a beat. Players can rest assured that the game's virtual pod monitors players' vital signs 24 hours a day, and will immediately force them to wake up if any abnormality is detected. Additional note, the game's time-flow ratio is 362:1 compared to real time. The top-tier virtual pod and highly efficient nutrient solution you use can ensure your body's basal metabolic rate remains stable for over 10 years. Time and safety are not a concern. If a player insists on exiting the game, they can do so at any time, but will permanently forfeit their eligibility for the one-time completion bonus. Does the player want to log out of the game? Don't quit. Mew resolutely refused. Are you kidding me? He absolutely will not quit the game until he beats it and wins the millions in prize money. Just then, a series of rapid footsteps came from outside the door, clearly indicating that the gunshots had alerted the manor's bodyguards. Mew dispelled his doubts, quickly brought up the game map, and locked onto the coordinates of SHIELD headquarters. Click to go. When the bodyguards arrived, there was only a cold corpse and a C4 bomb ticking in the master bedroom. Shower, monkey. Bang. The Tri-Wing building, director's office. At this moment, Nick Fury was sitting behind his large desk, reviewing a thick stack of documents. SHIELD Budget Allocation Report. A voice suddenly rang out. Nick Fury looked up sharply and saw a huge yellow dog's head approaching the document. Mew. Fuck. Nick Fury shuddered and instinctively shouted. But he quickly recognized the other person's identity and said with a dark face, Mew. How many times have I told you? Dress normally at headquarters, at least look like a human being. Mew was immediately displeased upon hearing this. This combination is clearly very cool, and the strength is not low either. Nick Fury's lips twitched. Did you leave your aesthetic sense in the embryo when you were born? He was about to explode when Mew suddenly pointed to a spot in the document. Hey director, something's not right with this report. There are a few large expenditures with no apparent reason. Could it be that someone in the bureau is secretly embezzling public funds? Cough, cough, cough. Nick Fury suddenly coughed violently a few times, slammed the file shut and stuffed it into the drawer, and said in a serious tone, "This is top secret. I'm handling it personally. It's not something a level 5 agent like you should be concerned with." Oh. Nick Fury, with a stern face, forcefully changed the subject. Now I have an important task for you. As he spoke, he took a file from another drawer and pushed it in front of Mew. The first page of the file features a photo of a flamboyant man with a mustache, with his name and identity listed below. Tony Stark, chairman of Stark Industries. 3 months ago, Tony Stark was attacked by unidentified armed men in the Middle East, and his fate remains unknown. I need you to go to Afghanistan immediately, find out where Tony Stark is, and bring him back safely if he is still alive. As Nick Fury finished speaking, the system's voice sounded simultaneously. NPC Nick Fury has given you a new mission. Mission, the birth of Iron Man. Objective, to travel to the Middle East, locate Tony Stark, and bring him back safely. The player has triggered the main storyline quest. Upon completion, the player will receive generous rewards. Main quest? Mew's eyes widened in excitement. Coming! The main quest he'd been waiting for has finally arrived. Iron Man? That sounds like a superhero's title. Could he be an important character? Mew guessed. Although he knew very little about Marvel, he did know that it was a superhero comic book company, and its core focus was naturally on superheroes. However, Mew has never heard of any superheroes, let alone seen any, in all his games so far. Nick Fury, on the other hand, has a bit of a superhero vibe. What is his hero title? One-Eyed Man? Or is it Mama's Fuck? Mew. Are you even listening to me? Nick Fury stared at the dazed Mew and felt his blood pressure rising. Mew snapped out of his daze. Sir, what did you just say? I said. Never mind, it's not important, let's skip the plot. Nick Fury. End of this chapter. Chapter 2, Beginner Village Chief. Chapter 2, Beginner Village Chief. The following day, a Quinjet fighter jet quietly flew over the Middle East. Inside the cabin, a middle-aged man pointed to the desert outside the porthole and said in a deep voice, "The area below is where Tony Stark was last confirmed to have disappeared. The complex political environment restricts us from launching a large-scale search operation. We can only investigate covertly, so this operation must be kept low-key." Mew nodded. "Don't worry, Village Chief, I'm known for being low-key. I'll say it again, I'm Coulson, not some village chief. Stop pretending, you are the village chief of the newbie village. I can see the title above your head." Coulson glanced instinctively at the empty space above him, a look of utter helplessness on his face. He had read Mew's file and knew the man's style and deeds very well. Mew, an outstanding graduate of the SHIELD Academy, has demonstrated exceptional personal and executive abilities since joining SHIELD 2 months ago. No matter how difficult the mission, he could always handle it by himself, and he never made an evacuation plan or needed any support. In just 2 months, he completed 48 tasks with an astonishing 100% success rate. Such terrifying efficiency left even Coulson, known as the workhorse of SHIELD, in the dust. Mew was promoted to level 5 agent as a result, setting a record for the fastest promotion in the history of SHIELD. However, Mew had an almost obsessive dedication to completing his mission, to the point that he would stop at nothing to achieve it. During a secret infiltration mission, he once slaughtered nearly 100 soldiers in the base, leaving no one alive, not even the 2 guard dogs. As soon as the news broke, Nick Fury immediately blocked it. Nearly 100 soldiers have died, a casualty level almost comparable to a small-scale conflict. They are SHIELD, not the Hell Hydra. When confronted with Nick Fury's stern questioning afterward, Mew's response was also very confident and self-assured. There were no witnesses and no alarms were triggered throughout the entire process. Isn't this the perfect infiltration? Yes, very Rivery. An analysis report by SHIELD psychological experts indicated that Mew was suspected of suffering from severe delusional disorder. For him, the whole world is a giant virtual game. Everyone is an NPC. And he was the only player. Logically, such an extremely dangerous and uncontrollable factor should have been placed on S.H.I.E.L.D's highest alert blacklist and closely monitored. But Nick Fury did not do that. After all, which boss would be willing to fire an employee who single-handedly raises the company's KPIs? Nick Fury ultimately chose to turn a blind eye to Mew's behavior. Of course, he couldn't open both eyes either. Since even his own boss did the same, Coulson, as a henchman, naturally wouldn't say anything more. If the action plan is correct, I will immediately notify the pilot to find a safe landing point. As Coulson spoke, he prepared to contact the cockpit. No need to bother. Mew waved his hand. Before Coulson could react, he casually pressed the button to open the cabin door. Coulson was horrified. Wait. We're hundreds of meters up. You didn't bring a parachute. Woohoo, take off. Before he could finish speaking, Mew shouted and leaped out of the cabin with his arms outstretched. Coulson was left standing in the cabin, completely bewildered. Yellow sand swirls. Mew plummeted from a height of several hundred meters, the violent air currents tearing at his clothes, and all he could hear was the whistling of the wind. The ground rapidly magnified in the field of vision, with jagged rocks and undulating sand dunes clearly visible. Mew showed no sign of panic. His body suddenly spun in the air, turning into a supine position with his arms outstretched, then quickly brought back to protect his chest. Just as he was about to make contact with the ground. Bang! A large, dry, fluffy haystack appeared out of nowhere directly below, and Mew smashed it into the haystack with perfect precision, sending hay dust flying everywhere. Then, he easily leaped off the haystack, completely unharmed. Skill, leap of faith effect: when you fall from a great height, a haystack below will catch you, granting immunity to all fall damage. Comment: nothing is true, everything is permitted. This is a skill that Mew obtained after completing a certain task. It's not only practical, but more importantly, it's incredibly cool. So much so that even now, when he's standing on a slightly higher spot, he has an urge to jump. Where did this come from? Mew looked around and saw only monotonous sand dunes. The harsh environment made it difficult to even find his way, let alone find someone. However, this is not a problem for him. System: track the mission objective. The location of mission objective Tony Stark has been marked. As the system notification sounded, a striking golden dot immediately appeared on the minimap. Not bad, not too far, Mew muttered, and started running towards the light. Tens of minutes later, Mew followed the quest marker and arrived at the edge of a valley surrounded by massive rocky mountains. He crouched down and looked down. A simple little camp was hidden at the bottom of the valley. The outer perimeter was covered with sandbag fortifications and barbed wire, while the interior was filled with various weapon crates bearing the Stark Industries logo, as well as scattered missile component debris. Inside the camp, a group of heavily armed militants patrolled back and forth, numbering at least 40. The golden dot marking the quest is located in the deepest, darkest cave in the camp. Mew observed that the only passage leading to the cave was heavily guarded, making infiltration extremely difficult. Normally, he would have already enjoyed the fight. But this mission is more important. It's best not to alert the enemy before finding the target. It seems the main entrance is blocked, we'll have to find another way. Clang! 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 The crisp sound of hammering echoed inside the cave. In the dim light, a man was forging iron with great effort. Don't get me wrong, this person isn't a prison guard, but the Steel Man, Tony Stark. He has been imprisoned in this isolated mountain cave since being kidnapped by terrorists 3 months ago, where he has been subjected to threats and humiliation in an attempt to force him to develop a new type of missile. But who exactly is Tony? He's been rebellious since he was a child. If you tell him to go east, he'll definitely go west. So, under the guise of manufacturing missiles, he obtained a large amount of materials and tools from the terrorists, and with the help of Dr. Ethan, a physicist who was also a prisoner, he secretly designed and built a set of steel armor that would allow them to break through the encirclement. Tony used pliers to clamp a steel mask and placed it on the workbench. Ethan, who was engrossed in his work, looked up at the sound. The core components are almost complete, now all that's left is the final assembly and starting the power system. Tony's voice was deep and hoarse, with a hint of barely perceptible fatigue. Ethan, we don't have much time. Those guys seem to be getting suspicious. We have to act quickly. Leave the rest to me. Ethan nodded seriously. Okay, you stay here and wait until I clear out the scum outside and make sure it's safe before you come out with me. Tony's eyes were filled with determination. The hardships he had endured these past few days had made this prodigal son, who had indulged in gambling, prostitution, and alcohol, more mature and stable. He swore secretly in his heart. If he manages to get back alive this time, Tony Stark will never swear an eye on gambling again. Next, with Ethan's help, Tony began to put on the heavy armor pieces one by one. Thump. 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 Just as the two were busy, a dull and strange digging sound suddenly came from beneath the rocky ground at their feet. What sound? Tony and Ethan froze simultaneously, exchanging a puzzled glance. However, before they could react, a horrifying scene unfolded. Less than 2 meters from their feet, the hard ground vanished instantly, as if erased by an invisible eraser. Instead, there was a perfectly square pit with sides of about 1 meter. Suddenly, a head popped out of the pit. His eyes were fixed on Tony. Got you. End of this chapter. Chapter 3, Chapter Manipulation? Do players have that thing? Chapter 3, the manipulation part? Do players have that thing? Whatafa? Tony and Ethan were so shocked by the sudden scene that their hearts stopped. Tony, in particular, hadn't slept for 2 days to meet the deadline, and this scare almost made him faint. Under the astonished gazes of the two men, Mew nimbly climbed out of the pit, brushed off the dust, and casually slung a pixelated pickaxe over his shoulder. Item: Diamond Pickaxe. Effect: greatly improves mining efficiency, allowing for rapid collection/destruction of most minerals and rocks. Comment: if Andy Dufresne had this pickaxe, he would have avoided at least 27 years of detours. Who are you? Tony was the first to come to his senses, staring warily at the stranger. Mew grinned, you must be Tony Stark. I'm here to rescue you. Are you sent by the military? No, I am a SHIELD agent, this is my business card. Tony took the business card and glanced at it. FBI Senior Agent Mew. Sorry, I took the wrong one. Mew casually pulled back his business card, then took out a large handful of various business cards from his pocket. Department of Defense, CIA, NYPD, IRS. Tony, _. Found it. Mew finally found the business card and handed it over. Homeland Strategic Defense, Attack and Logistics Bureau, Senior Agent Mew. Tony looked at the long and tedious name of the organization and felt it was something a novelist had made up to pad out the word count. He looked at Mew suspiciously. How many people did you send for this national defense strategy? Mew smiled confidently, it's just me. Tony's face darkened. Is this guy just messing with me? Mew paid no attention to Tony's reaction, his gaze was completely drawn to the rugged steel armor on Tony's body. Mark the first armor, already bound to Tony Stark. Description: a powered armor that Tony handcrafted using scrap materials in a cave, requiring a large amount of energy to operate. Nice one. Mew's eyes lit up. No man can resist the allure of armor, and he was no exception, it was the ultimate romance for men. It's a pity it's tied to Tony, a main storyline character, otherwise I could have tried to get it. Mew sighed regretfully. He had already verified that the NPCs in this game did not have a respawn mechanism. Once an NPC dies, they will disappear permanently and will never reappear, and related quests will also become invalid. Therefore, it's best to avoid attacking characters in the main storyline. However, you could give it a try on your second playthrough. Mew was secretly making plans. Tony felt a chill run down his spine under Mew's eager yet dangerous gaze. Just as he was about to speak, a commotion suddenly erupted outside the cave. Tony's expression changed drastically, and he looked sharply at the surveillance camera in the corner. It was clear that the terrorists had already spotted the situation and were heading towards them. They're here. Hurry up. Tony ignored Mew and yelled at Ethan. Before long, terrorists arrived outside the cave, banging on the iron gate and shouting in an unintelligible language. Boom! The moment the terrorists forced open the iron gate, a deafening explosion rang out. The bomb Tony and Ethan had planted at the doorway detonated, several charred corpses fell to the ground and smoke and debris filled the air. Before the two could even catch their breath, more rapid footsteps approached from afar. Damn it! Tony was extremely anxious. These terrorists had arrived much faster than expected. Ethan, start the power system immediately. But the armor isn't fully tested yet. We can't worry about that now. Hurry. Tony knew that forcibly activating the Iron Man armor was extremely risky, but he had no other choice. If we don't activate it soon, they might not even have a chance to fight back when the terrorists break in. Ethan gritted his teeth and, under Tony's command, started the power system. The progress bar on the computer screen began to slowly advance. Outside the cave, the roars and footsteps of the terrorists grew ever closer. That's too late. Ethan took a deep breath, grabbed the rifle next to the corpse, and said with unwavering determination, "I'll hold them off." After saying that, he rushed out of the cave without hesitation. "Ethan! Come back! Proceed according to plan!" Tony shouted anxiously, but Ethan had already disappeared into the cave entrance. Click, click, click. At this tragic and tense moment, an untimely voice rang out. Mew was cracking melon seeds that he had somehow produced, watching with great interest the scene of life and death before him. The cut scenes are alright, but the plot is a bit cliché. Mew spat out the melon seed shells and commented. Based on his extensive experience immersing himself in countless game storylines, this NPC named Ethan is most likely to be sacrificed. Wait a minute, this plot development seems a bit familiar. Mew suddenly realized something was wrong and looked at Tony suspiciously. Frankly speaking, the idea of handcrafting power armor from scrap materials in a cave is illogical and blatant cheating. In addition, there's the storyline involving the sacrifice of companions. This kind of treatment seems to be reserved for the main character, right? System, don't tell me the main character is this mustache guy. I'm just a passing camera. Please rest assured, this game has no preset protagonist, the system will not interfere with any player decisions, and players are free to participate in the story. Players can choose to become the protagonist, a supporting character, or a passerby. That's good. Mew breathed a sigh of relief. He doesn't want to be some kind of mobile camera, falling asleep as soon as his head hits the pillow every day. Tony was furious when he saw Mew leisurely eating sunflower seeds. They're risking their lives here, and you're just sitting there eating sunflower seeds and watching the show. But then I thought, this guy claims to be a special agent, so he should have some fighting ability, right? Clinging to his last shred of hope, Tony urgently shouted to Mew, "Hey, what agent? Stop Ethan for me. Don't let him do anything stupid." Ethan, a scientist with no physical strength, faced a group of vicious terrorists. His fate was predictable. "Damn it, you're dead." Hearing Tony's words, Mew scoffed, "Ha, who do you think you are? I'm a SHIELD agent. You think I'd just do whatever you tell me to do? Wouldn't that make me lose face? NPC Tony Stark has given you a new quest. Mission, rescue Ethan. Objective, ensure Ethan survives. Rewards, 1000 experience points. Tony Stark's favor ability plus 20, random rare quality item *1. But then again, as a model citizen, how can I stand by and watch someone die? Don't worry, I'll take care of this." The disdain on Mew's face vanished instantly, replaced by an expression of righteous indignation. Tony was dumbfounded by how quickly the situation changed. As for integrity? Mew asked, do gamers even have that kind of thing? End of this chapter. Chapter 4: The Eye of Death. Chapter 4: The Eye of Death. System, track the mission objective. The location of mission objective Ethan has been marked. The golden dot representing Ethan instantly lit up on the minimap, indicating that he had already run quite a distance. This four-eyed guy's got some skills. Mew raised an eyebrow, quite surprised. That seemingly frail NPC actually has this kind of ability? Could it be that Ethan is a hidden war god? Warning! The mission target's vital signs are rapidly declining, they are on the verge of death. The mission will be considered a failure if the objective is killed. Okay, pretend I didn't say that. Under Tony's astonished gaze, the diamond pickaxe in Du Mu's hand vanished into thin air, replaced by a 9.3R pistol that gleamed with a cold, hard metallic luster. What are you? Wait for my good news. Before Tony could finish speaking, Du Mu threw down a sentence and his figure had already chased after the light. Just as Du Mu emerged from the cave and rounded the first bend, he ran head-on into several heavily armed terrorists. Upon seeing Du Mu suddenly appear, the terrorists were clearly taken aback, and then frantically raised their guns, the dark muzzles all locking onto Du Mu. Hands up! Put down your weapons! Squat down! Don't move! Terrorists use a wide variety of languages, including some obscure and less common ones. However, Du Mu could fully understand what they meant. This is thanks to the fact that he checked the Let Us Speak Chinese option in the initial game settings. The system automatically translates all languages into Chinese, and similarly, what he says is also converted into a language that the other party can understand. So do you want me to move or not? Du Mu asked helplessly. The terrorists seemed bewildered by his question, exchanging blank glances and failing to reach a consensus for a moment. So they decided to get rid of the person who caused the problem. Ta 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 ta. The terrorists grinned and pulled the triggers, unleashing a deluge of bullets at Du Mu. Despite being about to be riddled with bullets, Du Mu remained calm. The eye of death. In an instant, the world seemed to be slowed down. Time suddenly became viscous and slowed down, and everything around us almost stood still. Even the bullet trajectories that were invisible to the naked eye became clearly visible at this moment, slowly advancing through the air like snails. In this almost frozen space and time, only Du Mu's movements remained fluid. His gaze swept over each terrorist, and a glaring red crosshair instantly appeared on the head of the locked target. Boom, 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 boom. The next moment, 4 gunshots rang out almost simultaneously. Before the terrorists could even scream, blood exploded from their foreheads, and they collapsed to the ground with guns still pointed at them. Skill, Death Eye. Effect: after activating the skill, time slows down, allowing you to mark enemies and quickly fire at all marked targets. It also grants multiple abilities such as bullet tracking, weak point detection, unlimited ammo, and temporary X-ray vision. Comment: I have a plan by Dog Egg. Tisk, trash monsters, they don't even drop experience points. Du Mu curled his lip in disdain and continued moving towards the spot of light. The commotion clearly alerted the terrorists, and a flurry of footsteps quickly approached him. Boom! A terrorist had just peeked halfway out from around the corner when Du Mu shot him in the head, sending tofu pudding flying everywhere. The terrorists behind him were terrified and immediately raised their guns, firing wildly at Du Mu. Du Mu hid behind the rock wall, calmly took out a flashbang, estimated the approximate location, pulled the pin, and threw it. In an instant, blinding light burst forth in the narrow passage. Ah! The terrorists screamed and covered their eyes, as if they were seeing heaven. Boom! 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 After a series of precise shots, it seemed as if the word "two" could be removed. Soon, Du Mu fought his way to the end of the corridor and finally found Ethan. Ethan's situation was not looking good at this point. He lay pale-faced on the sandbag, blood gushing from several gruesome bullet holes in his chest. Upon seeing Du Mu appear, Ethan, disregarding his injuries, shouted hoarsely, "Watch out! There's an ambush here! Go to hell!" The terrorists, who were hiding in the shadows, saw their target step into the trap and opened fire without saying a word. Da-da-da-da-da! Gunfire erupted, and a hail of bullets rained down on Du Mu's location. Du Mu reacted quickly, performing a tactical role to hide behind cover. He glanced at the minimap, where the red dots representing the enemy were flashing, revealing the terrorists' positions. Thank goodness I wasn't playing an FPS game, or I would definitely have been banned. Boom! A gunshot rang out, and the terrorist hiding in the corner suddenly had a flash of inspiration, collapsing onto his comrade next to him. No, Johnny, I'll take the blame for you. Boom! Before his companion could finish speaking, a bloody hole, just like that of a certain president, appeared on his forehead. Boom! 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 Gunshots rang out continuously. Each gunshot was accompanied by a terrorist falling to the ground. The terrorists were horrified to discover that no matter how they moved or where they hid, Mew seemed to always be able to find their location and shoot them accurately through the head. An absurd illusion arose in their minds, as if they were surrounded by the other person. Devil! He is a devil! The remaining terrorists, unable to withstand the pressure, turned and fled. Boom! 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 Several corpses fell to the ground with a thud. Mew emerged from behind the cover and looked at the gruesome corpses scattered on the ground, but his heart remained unmoved. As a player, his heart was colder than that of a fishmonger who had been killing fish for decades. Don't move! Or I'll kill him! A voice suddenly came from the side. Mew looked in the direction of the sound and saw Ethan being held hostage by a bearded man, with a pistol pressed firmly against his temple. Perhaps out of fear of Mew's marksmanship, the bearded man used Ethan as a human shield, hiding his obese body behind a greyhound, creating an indescribably comical scene. Don't worry about me, Ethan said weakly. Mew remained silent. If it weren't for the mission requirements, he might have considered taking out Ethan first, so that the other side would have no hostages. Seeing that Mew seemed to care about Ethan's life or death, the bearded man was overjoyed and threatened sharply, if you don't want him to die, throw away the weapon in your hand. All right. Mew unexpectedly cooperated and dropped the 9.3R in his hand on the ground. Upon seeing this, the bearded man revealed a cruel smile and turned his gun towards Mew without hesitation. Ha ha ha, you're such an idiot. Get there. Boom. The bearded man's smile froze on his face as he fell straight down. Mew, holding another 9.3R that had appeared in his hand at some unknown time, innocently said to the corpse, "You only said to throw away the one you had, but you didn't say that we couldn't use the one in the warehouse. Please vote. Please add to favorites." End of this chapter. Chapter 5 Who is Musk? Chapter 5 Who is Musk? After killing the bearded man, Mew quickly went to Ethan's side, who was lying on the ground. After that fierce battle, Ethan's injuries were clearly more serious. His breathing became weaker and weaker, his eyes gradually became unfocused, and his face seemed to have a big red death written on it. Ethan struggled to speak, his voice barely a whisper, "I'm dying. Please tell Tony not to waste this opportunity. You should save your sentimental lines for yourself." Mew rudely interrupted Ethan's last words, and at the same time, a green jar appeared in his hand. He then unscrewed the cap and poured the liquid inside onto Ethan's hands. "Ethan! I'm almost dead, why are you washing my hands now?" Just as Ethan was feeling confused, a strange itching sensation suddenly came from his chest. He subconsciously looked down and saw that the several fatal gunshot wounds on his chest were healing rapidly at a speed visible to the naked eye, disappearing without a trace in the blink of an eye. Props: Biohazard brand hand sanitizer. Effect: can instantly heal most injuries, even severed hands and feet can be easily reattached. Review: washing makes you healthier. How is this possible? Ethan sat up, touching his unharmed chest in disbelief. If it weren't for the bloodstains and bullet holes on his clothes, he would have thought he had just experienced a nightmare. Nothing is impossible. Mew casually tossed the empty bottle away without a trace of regret. He has a huge stockpile of healing items like these in his game inventory, and he can't possibly use them all. At this time, the system prompt sounds. Side quest: saving Ethan complete. Rewards: 1000 experience points. Tony Stark's Favor ability plus 20. Item: Pure Iron Poke Ball. Item: Pure Iron Poke Ball, a Poke Ball weighing 100 kilograms. Only surviving Pokémon are worthy of being captured. As expected of a mission issued by a main storyline character, the rewards are indeed generous. Mew nodded in satisfaction. Indeed, following the main storyline is the best way to go. It's much more efficient than grinding daily tasks. Dang 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 dang. Accompanied by heavy, somewhat clumsy metallic footsteps, a steel armor made of rough sheet metal emerged from the passage. The steel armor's visor popped open, revealing Tony's face, a mixture of anxiety and sweat. Finally found you. Seeing that Ethan was unharmed, Tony breathed a sigh of relief and then asked, "By the way, what about those terrorists? It's all over the place." Mew gestured with his chin to indicate his surroundings. Upon hearing this, Tony looked around and gasped at the sight before him. The ground was littered with corpses, each terrorist with a bloody hole between their eyebrows, white and red blood flowing everywhere, looking particularly gruesome in the dim light. Tony looked at Mew in shock. "You did all this? Low profile." Mew waved his hand modestly. Tony gasped. Mew had actually taken down so many terrorists all by himself. His skills were simply unbelievable. But he was no less capable than anyone else in his life, and he did not show any surprise on his face. Instead, he said in a flippant tone, "Listen, James Bond, your mission is complete. You can leave the rest to me." After saying that, Tony removed his faceplate and strode out of the cave in his Iron Man suit. Outside the cave, dozens of terrorists were already on high alert, each armed with new Stark Industries firearms, their muzzles pointed at the entrance. The moment the steel armor appeared, a fierce glint flashed in the eyes of the bald, burly man at the head, and he gave the order without hesitation. "Fire!" As soon as the order was given, the terrorists pulled the triggers simultaneously. Da-da-da! Gunfire rang out as bullets rained down on the steel armor, creating a dense, ear-piercing impact. Faced with such fierce firepower, even Tony, wearing Iron Man armor, was shaken to his core and cursed wildly in his mind. Using weapons he designed himself to fight him is just too damn unfair. Strangely, despite the two obvious holes in Tony's steel visor around his eyes, no bullets ever hit them, as if the bullets had eyes and automatically avoided them, which was quite amazing. "It's my turn!" Tony roared and raised his arms, and two balls of blazing flames instantly erupted, sweeping towards the area where the terrorists were gathered. The people at the front were unable to dodge in time and were immediately engulfed by flames, letting out shrill screams. Seeing his team being forced to retreat by Tony's flamethrower, the bald, muscular man's face turned ashen. He roared, "Heavy machine guns! Suppressive fire!" High in the valley, several heavy machine guns that had been set up beforehand quickly moved their muzzles and began to unleash a barrage of ammunition on Tony. Da-da-da-da-da! The powerful bullets sent sparks flying off the armor, and the force of the impact pinned Tony firmly to the spot. To make matters worse, a stray bullet severed the track connection on the right leg of the Iron Man suit, leaving Tony unable to move and forced to kneel on one knee. Oops! Tony sensed something was wrong, and cold sweat instantly soaked his back. This hastily crafted steel armor, while offering strong defense, lacks flexibility and has limited offensive capabilities. Once he loses his mobility, he's no different from a turtle with its head tucked in. The bald, burly man astutely noticed Tony's predicament. A ferocious grin spread across his face as he roared, "Prepare the anti-tank rocket launcher! Smash this damn metalkin to pieces! So what if it can withstand bullets?" He refused to believe that Stark Industries' anti-tank rocket launcher couldn't blow up this iron turtle. Seeing a terrorist hoist an anti-tank rocket launcher and aim it steadily at him, Tony couldn't help but swallow hard. He knew better than anyone the power of his weapons. This steel armor had no chance of withstanding the bombardment of anti-tank rockets. If that shot hit, he'd probably turn into Tony Stark. Boom! Just at this critical moment, a crisp gunshot pierced the noise. The terrorist carrying the rocket launcher had his head explode, and the anti-tank rocket launcher fell to the ground. Tony turned around and saw Mew standing not far away, holding a pistol. "Listen, Elon Musk, your role is over. You can take over now." "Who is Elon Musk?" Tony was puzzled, but with the crisis looming, he didn't have time to investigate further and immediately yelled at Mew, "Retreat! Their firepower is too intense." "Oh!" Upon hearing this, Mew not only did not back down, but calmly put away his pistol. Then, to Tony's astonishment, a 6-barreled Gatling gun with an extremely cool design and a cold metallic sheen appeared in his hands. "How does that compare to my game? Whata fa?" Tony was so shocked his eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Where did they pull such a big and thick thing out from? Please vote and add to your favorites. End of this chapter. What are all the hardships I and number 039, VE endured before chapter 6? What are all the hardships I've endured before chapter 6? As we all know, every player is a mobile arsenal. When it comes to firepower, Mew has never been afraid of anyone. Looking at the stunned terrorists in front of him, Mew grinned and pulled the trigger without hesitation. The 6 thick gun barrels began to spin at high speed, emitting a deep and terrifying preheating hum. Upon seeing this, the bald, burly man's pupils constricted, and he roared hoarsely, "Retreat! Retreat now! Da-da-da-da-da!" Before the roar had even faded, a violent storm of metal had already torn through the air. The Gatling gun unleashed a terrifying rate of fire of 6,000 rounds per minute, leaving the terrorists caught in its barrage no time to react before they were instantly torn to shreds by countless bullets. Terrorists attempted to retaliate with their guns, only to be met with a barrage of fire the next second. The bodies contained at least half a pound of bullets. Without any pretense, Mew, wielding a Gatling gun, activated his death eye and swept away all targets within range. Even terrorists who hid and refused to show themselves were blasted into dust along with their bunkers by the devastating blows of the Gatling guns. Before the Gatling gun, all beings are equal. But not long after, the gunfire suddenly stopped. The surviving terrorists, thinking Mew had run out of bullets, were overjoyed and popped their heads out, ready to retaliate. They then saw that Mew had put on sunglasses and said apologetically, "I was just saying I seem to have forgotten something." "Never mind, let's continue." "Your mother." Da-da-da-da-da. A few minutes later, the terrorists were no longer visible on the field. Even the bald, burly man who had a bit of screen time died tragically under Mew's merciless barrage, contributing 100 experience points to him. "I thought he was going to be a mini-boss, but it's just this." Mew was somewhat disappointed. After checking the minimap and finding no red dots, he put down the Gatling gun. He walked up to Tony and tapped his steel head. "Hey, are you dead yet?" "Not dead." Tony removed his mask, his eyes filled with barely concealed surprise. "Who exactly are you? Didn't I tell you? I'm a SHIELD agent. You can call me Mew." "Agent?" Tony's lips twitched slightly. "If you hadn't told me, I would have thought you were the Terminator, taking down dozens of terrorists single-handedly." "This poet?" "Tony, are you all right?" Ethan ran over. "I'm fine, it's just that the armor's energy is all gone and I can't move. Quickly help me take this thing off." With Ethan's help, Tony struggled to remove his Iron Man armor, revealing the dazzling arc reactor on his chest. "Holy crap, cyberpunk!" Mew's eyes lit up, and he looked at Tony and asked, "Are you selling this thing? Can I install one too?" "Sorry, this is not for sale." Tony felt that Mew was acting strangely. After all, what normal person would voluntarily install a reactor in their chest? If he could, he would rather not have this thing. Tony suddenly remembered something and said to Mew, "Do Mew, could you do me a favor?" "What's the matter?" "Help me destroy all the weapons here, leave none behind." Tony's eyes were serious. He didn't want the weapons he created to become someone else's killing tools again. NPC Tony Stark has given you a new quest. Mission: destroy weapons. Objective: destroy all Stark Industries-made weapons in the camp. Reward: 500 experience points. Tony Stark's favor ability plus 10. Although the reward wasn't much, it was easy. "No problem." Do Mew readily agreed, took out a sticky bomb from the game inventory, and casually stuck it on the box containing the missiles. Tony recognized the missile in the box as Stark Industries' latest product, with power comparable to the Jericho missile. A single missile could level a mountain. And inside this box were a full 6 missiles. Fuck. Seeing the bomb beeping and flashing red light, Tony turned green with fright. He immediately called to Ethan, who was still confused about the situation, and they turned and ran like madmen. Boom! A deafening explosion rang out, and flames soared into the valley. Even though Tony and Ethan were far enough away, they could still feel the intense heat emanating from them. Tony and Ethan were panting heavily, their hearts pounding, and their legs felt like they were about to break. In contrast, Do Mew seemed completely unaffected, not even breaking a sweat, showing no signs of having run over 1,000 meters. "You crazy person!" Tony gritted his teeth and glared at Do Mew. "You almost got us killed." Do Mew asked in confusion, "Why?" Seeing Do Mew like this made Tony even angrier. "Why? Luckily, the time bomb you planted had a long enough time limit, otherwise we would have been blown up if we hadn't run slowly." "Who said it's a time bomb? This is a remote-controlled bomb. It will only detonate when I press the button." Do Mew shook the controller in his hand. Tony and Ethan, "Why the hell didn't you say so sooner?" A short while later, a Quinjet appeared overhead and landed in front of the three. Coulson stepped out of the cabin, looking at Do Mew with a complicated expression. "Didn't we agree to keep a low profile?" Do Mew replied innocently, "I've already been very low-key." The explosion could be seen for dozens of kilometers around. "Is that what you call low-key?" Coulson sighed helplessly, not dwelling on the issue, and went straight to Tony, extending his hand in a friendly manner. "Hello Mr. Stark, I'm Coulson, an agent of SHIELD, here to take you back." Looking at Coulson's gentle smile, Tony breathed a sigh of relief. It seemed that even this SHIELD agent had normal people. If everyone at SHIELD were a madman like Do Mew, then SHIELD should be renamed the Neurotic Bureau. Do Mew ignored the two people talking and focused his attention on the system notification that had just sounded. Main quest: The Birth of Iron Man completed. Rewards: 10,000 experience points. Frying pan equipment, Golden Desert Eagle equipment, Breathing healing skill, bow tie shaped voice changer item. Equipment: Frying pan, indestructible, can withstand all gun attacks, and can also protect your rear. Equipment: Golden Desert Eagle, a desert eagle crafted from gold. Using it will make you the coolest person on the field. Skill: Breathing healing. Healing is restored simply by breathing. After 10 seconds out of combat, 5% of health is automatically restored per second. Item: Bow-shaped voice changer, allows you to freely switch between a cute lowly voice and a mature woman voice. Damn it! Do Mew could hardly believe his eyes. This was the first time he had ever seen such a generous mission reward. Not to mention the full 10,000 experience points, there are several skills, equipment, and items as rewards. It's worth noting that the rewards for daily tasks used to mostly consist of experience points or trash items like C4 bombs. Only more difficult tasks offered a chance to obtain equipment, skills, or slightly better items. As a result, the rewards for completing one main storyline quest were much more generous than the daily quests he had spent months grinding. What about all the hardships he endured before? Do Mew was heartbroken. "Coulson, tell Nick Fury that I can never go back." Carlson. Please vote and add to your favorites. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Sorry, sir, I didn't end number 039, to recognize you just now. Chapter 7. Sorry, sir, I didn't recognize you just now. Mew walked out of Nick Fury's office. After much persuasion, Nick Fury finally believed that he had no intention of leaving SHIELD. Mew then took the opportunity to make a request: from now on, apart from high difficulty tasks, please don't ask me to do low value tasks anymore, because I no longer find them appealing. Then, he was happy to get a day off. The reason is that there are no high difficulty missions available in SHIELD at the moment. The higher level missions have all been taken by other agents. Nick Fury decided to give Mew a day off so he could rest properly and avoid exhausting this sales champion. This game is unplayable, even the NPCs are so annoying. Mew grumbled as he strolled along the corridor. Come to think of it, he has never properly explored the SHIELD headquarters. Every time he comes, he goes straight to Nick Fury's office and hasn't even fully lit up the map of SHIELD. This is a good opportunity to open up a map and see if there are any hidden Easter eggs. After all, some game designers like to stuff treasure chests into every corner of the map, deliberately making players go through a lot of trouble to find them. This disgusted Mew back then. Just do it. Mew opened the minimap and moved towards the location that SHIELD had not yet highlighted. It has to be said that the SHIELD headquarters is indeed huge. Mew spent more than an hour exploring and still couldn't light up the entire map. Soon, he arrived at the door of an office, which, according to the map, was an unexplored, dark area. There aren't many people with private offices at SHIELD headquarters, and they usually have impressive backgrounds, with at least an 8th level agent level of authority, far beyond the reach of a 5th level agent like Mew. But Mew clearly had no qualms and pushed the door open to enter. Upon entering the office, Mew saw a blonde old man in a suit sitting behind a desk, with a bald man wearing glasses standing opposite him, seemingly reporting something. Mew's sudden intrusion startled the two of them. The bespectacled bald man reacted quickly, looking at Mew warily. Who are you? How did you get in? Why didn't the office security system trigger the alarm? So many problems. Mew suspected that he might have triggered some plot, and replied, I am Mew. I don't need to explain how I got in, right? As for why no alarm was triggered, it's simple, I hacked the system. The bespectacled bald man. How can you say that so confidently? You. All right, Agent Sitwell, you can go out now. I have something to say to Agent Mew. The blonde old man suddenly interrupted Sitwell. Mr. Pierce, but he. It's all right, leave it to me. Clear. Sitwell gave Mew a deep look before leaving the office. Please take a seat. Pierce gave Mew a rather friendly smile. Mew, without any hesitation, plopped down opposite Pierce, casually fiddling with a wallet in his hand. This is... Pierce looked puzzled. Oh, this? My wallet. As Mew spoke, he took out all the cash from his wallet and stuffed it into his pocket, then casually threw the wallet into the trash can at his feet. Pierce had excellent eyesight and clearly saw a driver's license slip out of the wallet. The person in the photo was none other than Sitwell, who had just left. Pierce. This is a master thief. Moreover, he's petty. Sitwell had his wallet stolen just because he glared at him. Pierce had made a preliminary assessment of Mew and said bluntly, I know you, Agent Mew. Oh? You've heard my story too. Mew's interest was piqued. Of course, your abilities are quite outstanding. You were promoted from a graduate to a level 5 agent in just 2 months, which is unprecedented in the history of S.H.I.E.L.D, Pierce praised. You flatter me. Mew's impression of Pierce improved greatly. It was rare to find an NPC with such good taste. However, I know more than just that. Pierce gave a meaningful smile. Mew disliked riddle makers the most, but considering the other person's praise, he still cooperated and asked, "What else do you know?" "Of course." Pierce leaned forward slightly, leaned close to Mew's ear, and whispered, "Long live Hydra." Mew's eyes widened suddenly as he stared at Pierce in disbelief. You. Pierce nodded with satisfaction. It seemed Mew had fully understood. "That's right, that's me." "What do you mean?" Mew finally finished speaking. "Pierce, can you please stop panting when you speak?" Pierce's face darkened, and he chose to lay his cards on the table. "Don't you understand? I'm Hydra. He's also your boss." Upon hearing this, Mew suddenly realized what was happening, immediately stood up, and said seriously, "I'm sorry, sir. I didn't recognize you just now." "That's right. Mew originally chose the identity of a Hydra spy. According to the system, he was a secret spy planted within SHIELD. His task was simple, to conceal his identity and not be discovered by anyone, especially by that heartless bald egg. In addition, he can still accept SHIELD missions as usual and receive the rewards without fail. It's all right, it's normal that you don't know. For the organization's safety, all inactive Hydra members will not know of each other's existence until they confirm each other's identities." At this point, Pierce looked at Mew speechlessly. "If you hadn't barged in today, I wouldn't have activated you, this hidden mob." This time, Mew stumbled upon another of his superiors by sheer chance. "However, your awareness of precautions is commendable. Even if someone shouts 'Long live Hydra' to you, you don't admit it on the spot. You did a very good job in that regard." Thank you for the compliment, sir." Mew scratched his head somewhat guiltily. Can he say that he's been a SHIELD agent for so long that he almost forgot about Hydra? No, this is the ultimate level of disguise. Even you forget your true identity, so who can find out? Upon thinking this, Mew suddenly felt capable again. Pierce's expression turned serious. "Now that it's activated, don't waste the opportunity. I happen to have a mission that needs manpower, and your conditions seem very suitable." "What mission?" Mew immediately perked up. If SHIELD can't get involved, then Hydra might be able to as well. "This is a long-term mission. I need you to keep a close eye on Nick Fury. If he assigns you any special tasks, or if you discover any unusual movements he makes, you must report to me immediately. NPC Alexander Pierce has given you a new quest. Mission: Long Live Hydra. Objective: to promptly report the progress of missions issued by Nick Fury to Pierce. Reward: determined based on mission completion and intelligence value." "Mission accomplished, sir." Mew stood at attention in response. Please vote, add to your favorites, and comment. End of this chapter. Chapter 8 Fudge and Matt. Chapter 8 Fudge and Matt. I came to my senses, and I realized that besides manufacturing weapons, I could contribute more to the world. Therefore, I have decided to shut down Stark Industries' weapons division, effective immediately. Until I found a new goal for the company and other directions that I felt were right and aligned with the highest interests of the country. On the television screen, Tony's loud announcement from the podium shocked not only everyone present but also others watching on television. It's worth noting that Stark Industries started out in the arms trade. What Tony did wasn't just cutting off his own arm, it was cutting off his own manhood, completely severing his foundation. Those most affected by this are the stock market investors. Since news of Tony's disappearance came from the Middle East, Stark Industries' stock price has plummeted, and shareholders who hold the stock are on the verge of collapse. They had been looking forward to Tony's safe return and thought that there was finally hope. Now it seems like this guy would have been better off just dying in the Middle East. Tony Stark, IFU, give me my money back. How could you do this to us? Is it possible for Stark Industries stock to rise further? It's unlikely. Damn it, I immediately bought more shares after hearing that Tony Stark was back, but now I'm not going to say anything. I need to go to the rooftop to grab a spot, or there won't be any left. In a noisy restaurant in Hell's Kitchen. Wails and curses rose and fell as investors stared at Tony on the television screen, gritting their teeth as if they wanted to devour him alive. Mew sat in the corner, watching the scene with great interest. I have to say, the NPCs in this game are really well done, much better than those rigid programs. Especially the curly-haired fat guy in front of him, his expression was as if Tony had cheated on him, he kept making beeping telegram sounds, and he was so excited that he knocked over the cup on the table. The blind man sitting next to him caught the falling cup with one hand. Okay? Did the blind man catch the cup? Mew instantly sensed something was wrong and pointed at the man in sunglasses, blurting out, "System. This game has another bug, hasn't it? How could a blind man catch a falling cup?" Ding! No abnormalities detected. The blind man seemed to have heard Mew's shout, but calmly put the cup back on the table as if nothing had happened. Mew narrowed his eyes. Based on his experience, he judged that this person was definitely not simple. Thinking of this, he casually picked up his almost untouched plate of food, got up and walked over, sitting directly in the empty seat opposite the two of them. Seeing Mew carrying a plate and staring at them, the curly-haired fat man asked in confusion, is there something wrong?" Mew grinned and put his plate on the table, "Nothing much, I just wanted to get to know you guys." The curly-haired fat man frowned slightly, "But we don't know you at all. $200 for making friends. You've come to the right place. Matt and I love making friends." The curly-haired fat man immediately put on a warm smile, "My name is Foxy Nelson, and this is my partner Matt Murdock. May I ask your name?" "Just call me Mew." "Hello, Mew." As he spoke, Fuji quickly handed over a business card from his firm. "Let me introduce you. We are lawyers, and we recently opened a law firm called Nelson Murdock nearby. If you need legal assistance, feel free to contact us anytime. We offer absolutely preferential rates." Mew chuckled as he accepted the business card, "So you're lawyers. Perfect, I have a legal question I'd like to ask you." Fudge patted his chest confidently, "Ask away. Don't worry, we're professionals." Mew nodded, looking serious, "What I want to ask is, if a pregnant woman gets into a fight, does that count as a group fight?" Fudge. Matt. Fudge was clearly taken aback by this bizarre question. He thought for a few seconds before speaking uncertainly, this shouldn't count. Strictly speaking, at least 3 people are needed to constitute a fight. But what if the pregnant woman is carrying twins? Fudge's expression froze instantly, as if his brain had crashed. Is this even a question a human being should ask? Seeing that Fudge couldn't answer, Mew shook his head regretfully and turned his gaze to Matt, who had been silent all along. "Are you blind?" Matt wasn't angry at the somewhat abrupt question, he simply nodded calmly. "Yes, I had an accident when I was very young, which caused me to go blind. Please don't touch my pockets. Although I can't see, I can still feel them." "Haha, just kidding." Mew awkwardly withdrew his hand from Matt's pocket. "It's confirmed now. This person is definitely not simple. With his near-perfect thieving skills, an ordinary person would have no chance of noticing his movements when he is completely unprepared, let alone a blind person. This guy might be a hidden NPC, a key figure in triggering special storylines." Just as Mew was secretly making plans, Matt suddenly asked, "I don't think you're a local. Why are you in Hell's Kitchen?" His voice remained calm, yet carried a subtle hint of inquiry. As is widely known, Hell's Kitchen is the most crime-ridden and most chaotic neighborhood in the United States, bar none. Various gangs roam freely here, you can find almost any crime you can imagine. Even the New York police have to be extra careful when patrolling this area. Apart from fearless office workers, ordinary people would never voluntarily step into this area. Find someone. Du Mu answered frankly, there was nothing to hide. Who? A man, codenamed Ironhead, I think his name was something like Harrow. Fudge scratched his head, looking puzzled. Ironhead? I've never heard of such a person in Hell's Kitchen. Matt frowned slightly behind his sunglasses and said in a deep voice, You're not talking about Joseph Harlow, are you? Ah, right. Du Mu slapped his thigh. That's the name. You know him? I wouldn't say I know them, I've only heard of them. Matt subtly adjusted his posture, he's the top leader of the Magia gang, codenamed Hammerhead. Rumor has it he's an invulnerable, immortal monster. He's extremely dangerous. You need to see him. That's it. Du Mu glanced at the time displayed on the wall clock, stood up casually, and said, Oh dear, it's time. I have something to do. I'll talk to you another day. After saying this, Du Mu walked briskly towards the restaurant entrance without waiting for their response. Listening to Du Mu's rapidly receding footsteps, Matt unconsciously rubbed his guide cane with his fingers, a thoughtful look on his face behind his sunglasses. Matt! Fudge's anxious voice pulled Matt back from his thoughts. What happened? That guy hasn't paid for his meal. Go after him. Matt. Please vote, add to your favorites, and comment. End of this chapter. Chapter 9 Deed. Chapter 9 Deed. Located in the deepest part of Hell's Kitchen, there stands a massive club. This is the core industry of the Magia gang, extracting astonishing wealth for them day and night. Even in the early hours of the morning, the place was still brightly lit and bustling with people. Outside the club's gate, a dozen gangsters stood guard openly, the outlines of bulging guns at their waists clearly visible. As Du Mu approached the gate, he was stopped by two of the men. Routine inspection. Row. Du Mu did not resist, allowing the gangsters to scan his entire body with a metal detector. Anyway, he put all his equipment and items into the game's inventory. No problem, come in. Du Mu nodded and stepped into the clamorous noise. The club has a very large interior space and is equipped with a variety of entertainment areas. Du Mu glanced around and headed straight for the busiest casino area. Behind each gambling table stood a sexy dealer dealing cards online, her neck swaying precariously. The gamblers around her stared wide-eyed, unsure whether they were looking at the cards or at her cleavage. Du Mu found an empty seat and sat down, and the dealer behind the counter immediately flashed a charming, professional smile. Sir, what would you like to play? Do Dizu, a popular Chinese card game. The dealer's smile froze. Sorry, we don't offer this type of game. What about hoeing the earth? No. You must have a tractor, right? No. The dealer got so angry she developed breast hyperplasia. You're deliberately picking a fight, aren't you? Du Mu curled his lip. Boring, let's just bet on big or small then. Okay sir. Upon finally hearing the familiar rules of the game, the dealer immediately switched back to his professional smile, picked up the dice cup, and began shaking it rapidly. Du Mu's eyes widened instantly, his gaze fixed on the swaying dice cup in front of the dealer. So bouncy, oh no, such fast hand speed. A dozen seconds later, the dealer stopped shaking the dice, put down the dice cup, and asked, How many chips would you like to place, sir? All in, of course. Bet on big. Du Mu threw out a chip with great confidence. Croupier. They dare to call it all in with just one chip? Du Mu had taken this chip from another gambler, and the gambler hadn't refused, so presumably the other party didn't mind. Immediately afterwards, the sexy dealer lifted the dice cup, revealing 3 dice inside, 5, 5 and 6. 16 o'clock, Big. The dealer's expression remained unchanged, he simply assumed Mew had gotten lucky, which was not unusual in a casino. She deftly pushed the 2 chips in front of Mew. Congratulations, sir. Would you like to continue? Of course. 10 minutes later. Do. Mew sipped his cappuccino while humming a light-hearted tune. At this moment, a small mountain of chips had been piled up in front of him, worth at least several $100,000. Skill, blessing of the god of gambler's apprentice. Description: your gambling skills have reached a level of perfection, you are virtually unbeatable in the casino. Comment: back then, Chen Daze won 2,500 million with $20. It's not a problem for you to win 20 million with 500. But please remember, you can't spend the money you win. You can only use it for charity, otherwise you will be cursed. With this skill, Mew's gambling skills were somewhat inferior to those of the god of gamblers. It's a pity there's a powerful debuff later on, otherwise the rich list tomorrow would probably have a different name. Sir, would you like to continue? The dealer's voice trembled noticeably, and cold sweat beaded on his forehead. Winning 50 hands in a row, this couldn't be explained by luck alone, he'd encountered a master. Of course. Mew nodded. The sexy dealer took a deep breath and began shaking the dice cup frantically. To distract Mew, she even deliberately pulled her collar down a little further. This shaking lasted for a full 5 minutes, until Mew's eyes were sore from the shaking, before it finally stopped. All in. Leopard. Without a second thought, Mew pushed all the chips in front of him out. The dealer swallowed hard, his fingers trembling, and slowly lifted the dice cup. 6, 6, 6. Leopard. The chips instantly multiplied dozens of times. The dealer, however, revealed a bitter smile of relief on his face, silently took out his phone, and began to select his favorite coffin color. She lost tens of millions of dollars in one night, it would be merciful if the Magia gang didn't chop her up and feed her to the dogs. Just then, a burly man in a black suit came to the gambling table and looked at Mew with cold eyes. Sir, please come with me for a moment. What? You want to renege on your winnings now? Mew was not intimidated at all. He suddenly raised his voice, instantly attracting the attention of the gamblers around him. The burly man's lips twitched. They may be gangsters, but they still need to maintain the facade of their establishment's credibility, otherwise who would dare to gamble there in the future? He suppressed his emotions and said in a low voice, "You've misunderstood. It's just that the amount of money at your table is too high. Why don't we move to the VIP room where the stakes are higher? If we take Mew away alone, then the other party will be completely at our mercy." No need. Mew waved his hand, a playful smile on his face. If you don't want me to continue playing, that's fine too. Just pay me $100 million right now, and I'll stop immediately, how about that? The burly man looked on in disbelief. Why don't you just rob it? Mew feigned surprise. How did you know I was going to rob you? Strong man. Before he finished speaking, Mew suddenly pulled out an exaggeratedly designed golden desert eagle, a wild smile spreading across his face. Everyone, raise your hands. Start the robbery now. Deep inside the club, in a secluded private room, the burly Russian man nicknamed Hammerhead was comfortably sunk in the sofa, his enormous head particularly conspicuous, while his hairy hands were kneading the bodies of the 2 dealers as if no one else was around. Hammerhead, what do you think of the conditions I proposed? Sitting opposite him was a man wearing black-rimmed glasses, who frowned slightly as he watched Hammerhead's nonchalant behavior. Hammerhead didn't even lift his eyelids, his tone full of disdain. Wesley, let Kingpin come and talk to me personally. Mr. Kingpin is very busy, but he has already given me full authority. Then there's no point in discussing it. Hammerhead's attitude was extremely arrogant, completely disregarding Wesley and Kingpin behind him. Wesley narrowed his eyes behind his glasses. I heard that a demon gang has recently emerged and ruined several of your deals. If a cooperation is reached, we would be happy to provide assistance. You don't need to worry about it. Hammerhead interrupted viciously. I'll handle that damned demon gang myself. Their leader seems to be quite powerful, with just your side, I'm afraid. So what? Hammerhead slammed his massive head down with a dull thud, grinning maliciously, I can't even be penetrated by bullets. A mere demon gang thinks they can take down the Magia gang? What a joke! Let me tell you. In Hell's Kitchen, nobody dares to mess with the Magia gang. And nobody can afford to mess with the Magia gang. No. Boom. The door to the private room was suddenly kicked open. One of his men rushed in, shouting, Boss! Something terrible has happened. There's a robbery going on outside. Hammerhead. Please vote, add to your favorites, and comment. End of this chapter. Chapter 10 U and number 039, VE already called yourself Ironhead Kung Fu, how could I possibly hit you on TH? Chapter 10 You've already called yourself Ironhead Kung Fu, how could I possibly hit you on the head? Please add to your favorites. We, one of the biggest gangs in Hell's Kitchen, have been robbed? Are you kidding me? Hammerhead's already fierce face instantly turned a deep liver color, as if he had been slapped hard across the face. He had just finished making a tough statement to Kingpin's spokesman, Wesley, declaring that no one dared to mess with the Magia gang, when someone dared to cause trouble on his turf. He could even picture Wesley's barely suppressed smirk. Anger surged to his head, and Hammerhead roughly shoved aside the two preening croupiers, stood up abruptly, and glared fiercely at the messenger. Was it done by the demon gang? No, they're not from the demon gang, the subordinate quickly replied. This answer did not calm the hammer down, instead, it was like pouring a bucket of oil into a fire. His eyes flashed with malice, and his voice was terrifyingly low, it seems that our Magia gang has not established its authority for too long. Any fool who doesn't know his own mortality dares to jump out and trample on us. Tell me, how many people did they send? Faced with his boss, who was so enraged he seemed ready to devour someone, the subordinate swallowed hard and slowly raised a finger, his hand trembling. 100 people. Hammerhead's brows furrowed into a knot, this was no small matter. No, it's one person. Hammerhead froze, wondering if there was something wrong with his ears. Are you sure you're not kidding? It really is the boss. After confirming it several times, Hammerhead's roar echoed through the private room. One person dares to cause trouble on my Magia gang's territory? Where the hell are all our people? The subordinate shrank back at the shout, that guy's marksmanship is excellent. He's already killed more than 30 of us. We can't stop him at all. Trash. A bunch of trash. Hammerhead clenched his fists so tightly his knuckles cracked, gritting his teeth as he said, I'd like to see which foolish bastard dares to do this. Boom. A huge explosion interrupted him. A huge hole was blasted open in the wall of the private room, and smoke and dust mixed with rubble instantly filled the entire space. A figure appeared leisurely, the golden desert eagle in his hand gleaming under the lights, almost blinding to the eye. Mew strolled into the private room with an air of leisure, his gaze casually sweeping over the astonished crowd before finally settling on the big-headed doll with the hammer. You're the Ironhead Kung Fu master. Ironhead Kung Fu? Is this calling me? Hammerhead, bewildered, glared menacingly at the uninvited guest. You're the one who's causing trouble on my turf, you idiot. Mew spread his hands, his tone indifferent, there's no other way. If you won't give me the money, then I'll have to resort to robbery. Hammerhead's lips twitched violently. If they don't give it to you, you'll just steal it. This kind of behavior is even more gangster-like than that of a criminal gang. Kill him for me. Hammerhead could no longer contain himself, his eyes blazed with murderous intent, and he roared out the order. As soon as he finished speaking, the gangsters around him pulled out their guns and opened fire. Boom! 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 A series of rapid gunshots rang out in the private room, and bursts of bullets whistled towards Du Mu. Du Mu rolled to the side to dodge, muttering, "They shoot without warning. The local gangs are so rude." Death eyes. Time suddenly slowed down, and Du Mu, without even looking, raised his spear and fired. Boom, 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 boom. The heads of the 5 gang members exploded instantly, and they fell straight to the ground. The other gang members were terrified and pulled the triggers even more frantically, raining bullets down on Du Mu. However, their resistance was futile against Du Mu, who was a cheat code. Gunshots rang out one after another, accompanied by short screams, and one gangster after another fell like wheat being cut down. A dozen seconds later, the private box was filled with corpses, leaving only Hammerhead and Wesley alive on the field. "Pa! Coward!" Hammerhead glanced disdainfully at Wesley, who was lying under the sofa, and crawled out from under another sofa. "Who exactly are you? Who sent you?" Hammerhead stared warily at Du Mu. He looked like a brute, but he wasn't stupid. The person in front of him was clearly after him. "Since you've figured it out, I won't pretend anymore." Du Mu's expression turned serious. "That's right, I'm a New York police officer. I was sent here to arrest you." In fact, Du Mu accepted a mission from SHIELD to investigate Hammerhead, an unusual mob boss. Gangs are not usually under S.H.I.E.L.'s jurisdiction, but intelligence on Hammerhead indicates that he is extremely unusual. Some people have witnessed him being shot in the head without any damage and even being able to headbutt a speeding car, which is something no normal person could do. Nick Fury therefore sent Dublin to Hell's Kitchen to investigate. If the intelligence is true, then take it back and hand it over to the research department. As for whether this is legal, what do the actions of the NYPD officers have to do with SHIELD? Are you a NYPD officer? Hammerhead stared at the blindingly bright golden Desert Eagle in Du Mu's hand with a strange expression. Are NYPDs really this extravagant now? Hammerhead's eyes flashed, and he said in a deep voice, "No matter who you are, leave now, and I'll pretend nothing happened." Perhaps out of fear of Du Mu's status and power, Hammerhead chose to back down for the time being. Du Mu resolutely refused. "How could that be? I still need to bring you back to report. If there's no room for negotiation, then go die." Before he finished speaking, Hammerhead sprang up like a wild beast and charged toward Du Mu. Boom! A dull gunshot sounded. Hammerhead merely tilted his head slightly, and a golden bullet was embedded in his forehead, spinning futilely at high speed but unable to penetrate any further, finally falling helplessly to the ground. "Ha ha ha! It's useless." Hammerhead easily flicked away the bullet mark on his forehead with his finger, laughing wildly, "I am unkillable. Not even bullets can harm me." Du Mu was a little surprised. He hadn't expected this guy to actually be able to withstand bullets. After withstanding Du Mu's gunfire, Hammerhead's expression grew even more arrogant. He slammed his massive head against the ground and roared defiantly at Du Mu. "Come on, you bastard! Keep hitting me here! I want to see, my leg!" A crisp gunshot rang out. Hammerhead suddenly collapsed to the ground, clutching his bleeding hairy leg and howling. "Why didn't you shoot me in the head?" Hammerhead was in pain, mixed with disbelief and confusion. In fact, his head was severely damaged in a brutal gang fight, and doctors later replaced it with a solid alloy skull, giving him an invulnerable head. This is why the so-called legend of immortality arose, making him famous in the underworld. To everyone's surprise, Du Mu, that unethical fellow, actually shot him in the knee. Nonsense! You call yourself Iron Head Kung Fu, even a fool would know your head is as hard as iron. Why would I keep hitting there? Am I crazy? Du Mu looked at him like he was an idiot. If he hadn't instinctively shot at the head with his first shot, Hammerhead wouldn't have even had a chance to utter a sound. Hammerhead. End of this chapter. Chapter 11 Daredevil. Chapter 11 Daredevil, please add to your favorites. Diamond Legs. Diamond Legs, hey. Inside the private box, gunshots and heart-wrenching screams of hammers echoed throughout. Mew didn't put away his golden desert eagle until he had emptied the magazine. He has a bad memory, so he always likes to settle scores on the spot. Mew hadn't forgotten Hammerhead's arrogant and mocking face at all. How dare a mere NPC provoke the fourth calamity? He was simply courting death. At this moment, Hammerhead's legs were a gruesome sight, riddled with countless bullet holes, and blood had soaked through his trousers, turning them a dark brown and leaving a glaring stain on the carpet. It's hard to imagine the inhuman torture he endured in that short period of time. Hammerhead lay sprawled on the ground, his eyes glazed over, repeatedly muttering, "I have Iron Head Kung Fu, not Vajra Leg Kung Fu. I have Iron Head Kung Fu, not Vajra Leg Kung Fu." Wesley, who had been lying face down under the sofa, witnessed this bloody and brutal scene, and his Adam's apple bobbed with difficulty. How cruel! Wesley boasted that he had been in the underworld for many years and had seen it all. But he had never seen this scene before. He single-handedly wiped out almost the entire Magia gang, and even tormented a notorious gang leader like Hammerhead like a toy. This can no longer be called a battle, it's a one-sided slaughter. Wesley had never believed in any gods, but now he did, and he kept praying to all sorts of deities not to let this evil spirit find him. Perhaps the gods heard his prayers. Mew seemed oblivious to Wesley in the corner, dragging Hammerhead out of the private room by the ankle like a dead dog. Hearing the departing footsteps, Wesley felt his heart begin to beat again. Hallelujah! He made the sign of the cross on his chest, crawled out from under the sofa, forced his eyes away from the mess of corpses and pools of blood, and immediately dialed a phone. "What's up?" A deep, imposing voice came from the other end of the phone. Wesley took a deep breath. "Mr. Kingpin, something's happened. The Magia gang is gone, and Hammerhead has been captured." "Okay." Kingpin's voice betrayed a hint of surprise. Was it the Devil Gang? Or the Russians? No. None of them. Wesley's voice trembled slightly. It was a man I'd never seen before. He single-handedly took down the Magia gang. Even Hammerhead was no match for him. According to him, he seems to be from the NYPD. Kingpin. When did the NYPD become so aggressive? On the other side, Mew was dragging Hammerhead, who had fainted from the pain, through the dark alley. As for that small fry who slipped through the net in the private room, he couldn't be bothered with him at all. He wasn't a red name target, and there would be no reward for killing him. "System, why can't we use the map for fast teleportation?" Mew complained in his mind that it was really troublesome to drag a big living person along. Living animals are prohibited during map teleportation, and objects weighing more than 10 kilograms are also not allowed. Understood. Mew glanced at the hammer at his feet. "I'll chop him up right now and take 10 kilograms of meat with me." Just as Mew and the system were arguing, a sound of something breaking through the air suddenly rang out. A dark red short stick shot out from the side and above like a venomous snake, aimed directly at his wrist that was gripping the hammer. Boom! The gunshot rang out almost simultaneously with the arrival of the short stick. Mew didn't even turn around completely, he simply raised his wrist casually, and the golden desert eagle spat out a tongue of fire. A bullet struck the short stick with perfect accuracy, sending sparks flying as it clattered to the ground. He then looked up at the source of the attack. Above the club entrance, atop a towering street lamp, stood a mysterious figure. The man was completely covered in a tight-fitting dark red leather jacket, and wore a half-coverage mask with two pointed corners. The lower edge of the mask revealed his stubble-covered buttocks and chin. Bathed in the dim light of the streetlights and the boundless darkness behind him, he resembled a bat demon descending from the shadows, exuding a cold and dangerous aura. That's right, this person is none other than Daredevil, the Dark Guardian. Hand the man over. Daredevil's voice was deep and hoarse as he pointed to Hammerhead, who was unconscious at Du Mew's feet. Du Mew grinned, "You think I'll just hand it over like that? Wouldn't that make me lose face?" Seeing Du Mew's flippant and casual attitude, Daredevil's brows furrowed tightly beneath his mask. He should be judged by law, not subjected to this kind of vigilante justice. What a coincidence, I'm a New York police officer. Du Mew shrugged. No, you are not. Daredevil denied it firmly, his voice even more serious. A real police officer wouldn't act like you. I can smell the strong stench of blood on you. As the saying goes, when God closes a door, he opens a back door. Daredevil is clearly the man who entered the back door of God. Although he is blind, he possesses sensory abilities far exceeding those of ordinary people. Apart from his sight, all his other senses have become exceptionally sensitive. In terms of hearing, Daredevil can easily hear the sound of a human heartbeat, and even the sound of blood flowing in the body. In terms of smell, he can distinguish the natural odor of individuals and remember and identify them, no matter how they try to mask their smell. On Du Mew, the bloodstain was so thick and tangible that Daredevil could not have been acquired from killing a dozen or so people. That was the massacre of hundreds, or even thousands of people. How many people have you killed? Daredevil couldn't help but ask. Du Mew, still chuckling, asked, Do you remember how many loaves of bread you've eaten in your entire life? This easy yet cruel answer made Daredevil gasp for breath. As a devout Catholic, he adhered to an inviolable principle of non-killing. Du Mew's blasphemous acts of slaughter, which treat human life as worthless, are an absolutely intolerable desecration and evil to Daredevil. That's a living human life. Daredevil's voice rose in anger. Human life? Du Mew seemed to have heard an amusing joke and chuckled matter-of-factly, they're just a bunch of data, they won't actually die. He paused, the muzzle of the gun casually pointing towards the hammer at his feet. Like this. Boom. To Daredevil's astonishment, the Golden Desert Eagle unleashed a deadly flash, the bullet instantly tearing Hammerhead's neck apart. Clearly, this Ironhead Kung Fu practitioner hadn't mastered the technique to his neck, as large amounts of blood gushed out like a fountain from his torn carotid artery. Hammerhead's body convulsed violently, then he fell completely silent. Du Mew looked at the corpse on the ground and shook his head with a hint of regret. What a pity. Bringing a live one back would have increased the mission completion rate, but dragging it around is just too troublesome. Daredevil stood frozen atop the street lamp, a chill instantly creeping up his spine. Just because you find it troublesome, you casually ended a life? End of this chapter. Chapter 12 ISN and number 039, It common sense for archers to max out their strength? Chapter 12 Isn't it common sense for archers to max out their strength? This madman. Daredevil finally saw things clearly. The person in front of me is a complete madman, a madman who only lives in his own world. You murderer deserve to be in jail. Daredevil gritted his teeth, his voice filled with suppressed anger. Du Mew chuckled and said in a flippant tone, You know what, I've never actually been to a prison. If it weren't for faction restrictions, I'd love to try out the game's wanted system and relive the happy times I had in Los Santos. Daredevil's heart sank. The other party not only treats human life as worthless, but also regards law and order as an absurd and ridiculous game. He must be stopped. We must not let him run rampant any longer. Once the thought took hold, Daredevil no longer hesitated. He suddenly leaped from the top of the street lamp, and as he fell, a short red stick in his hand whistled as it shot towards Du Mew. Boom! Gunfire erupted again, and the bullet accurately struck down the short stick. However, the instant the gunshot rang out, Daredevil had already landed steadily not far in front of Du Mew. With a tug of his hands, the two short sticks that had been knocked down immediately returned to his hands along the iron chain connected to their ends. Without the slightest hesitation, he rushed towards Du Mu at an extremely fast speed. Boom, boom. Du Mu reacted extremely quickly, firing 2 shots in quick succession. Daredevil flicked his wrist, the short stick leaving after images in front of him, and 2 crisp collision sounds rang out as the bullets were deflected. A stick to stop a bullet. Du Mu raised an eyebrow. But then I realized that this game was made by a superhero company, and it suddenly made sense. The next moment, Daredevil closed in, his red short stick aimed straight at Du Mu. He knew that Du Mu was a sharpshooter and that only by engaging in close combat and completely blocking his firing range could he minimize the threat he posed. Daredevil was thinking this when he prepared to unleash his signature move of striking 6 times in 1 second. Thai boxing warning. With a low shout, Du Mu charged forward, delivering a fierce front knee strike to Daredevil's ribs like a heavy hammer. Skill, Muay Thai warning. Effect, max level Muay Thai skills. Comment, 1 warning, next time it'll be Muay Thai. The sudden close-range attack caught Daredevil off guard. He took a solid hit to the ribs, and the force of the blow contorted his face, almost causing him to lose his breath. He endured the excruciating pain and kicked Du Mu hard in the abdomen, using the momentum to leap backward and widen the distance between them. Du Mu smoothly put away the Golden Desert Eagle, adopted a standard Muay Thai fighting stance, and said with a mocking smile, "You dare to fight me in close combat? You're quite brave. Don't you know that my strength is the highest of all attributes?" Daredevil really didn't know. After all, who would have thought that a marksman with godlike marksmanship could also be so strong in close combat? Great! Daredevil clutched his injured ribs, feeling as if several bones might be broken. The intense pain made it almost impossible for him to straighten up, leaving him in a disheveled state. Seeing Daredevil's pained expression, Du Mu chuckled and teased, "What's wrong, Matt? Hemorrhoids acting up?" Daredevil was shocked, but he tried his best to remain calm and asked in a low voice, "What are you talking about?" Du Mu laughed and said, "Stop pretending, Matt. Your name has already given you away." In his vision, Daredevil had a clearly visible name above his head, Matt Murdock. It was the blind lawyer he had met this morning. Matt's expression turned somewhat grim. His extraordinary perception failed to detect anything unusual above his head, yet Du Mu was able to accurately identify his true identity, even though they had only met once. It's important to know that he never revealed to anyone that he was Daredevil, not even his closest friend Fudge. Du Mu looked at Matt's shocked expression and clicked his tongue in amazement. "I never expected that you'd be such a legal pioneer in the morning, but at night you're a perverted freak who likes to wear tight clothes and engage in close quarters combat with men. You've got quite the variety. Matt, I'm fighting criminals, how come it sounds completely different in your mouth? But I'm very curious, how can you see things when you're blind?" Du Mu asked curiously. He was certain that Matt was truly blind, but this did not affect his movements at all. In fact, he was more agile and precise than most people, which was not the behavior one would expect from a blind person. "This has nothing to do with you." Matt's voice returned to its cold tone, which was tantamount to admitting his identity. There was no way to stop him now that Du Mu had clearly identified him. There was no point in pretending any longer. Du Mu shrugged, "Don't be so stingy. How about this, you answer my question, and I won't expose your perverted hobby, okay?" "This isn't a perverted hobby of mine." Matt paused for a few seconds, seemingly weighing the pros and cons. "It is good." Matt eventually agreed to Du Mu's suggestion. He also didn't want to reveal that he was Daredevil. He slowly began, "I can't see anything, but my sensory abilities are far beyond those of ordinary people. I can perceive changes in the surrounding environment and the movement of objects." "Put down your middle finger." "I told you I can feel it." No other meaning, just curious to try it out." Mew lowered his middle finger with a slightly embarrassed look, but his eyes held a strange sympathy. With such a sensitive situation, the nightlife is truly worrisome. Matt noticed Mew's strange gaze and was somewhat puzzled, but he didn't delve into it. He endured the excruciating pain in his ribs, his voice low and firm. Mew, your actions have completely violated the law. It's not too late to turn yourself in now. Mew chuckled, what law have I broken? Murder, the evidence is right at your feet. Matt pointed to the cold hammer on the ground. Mew's eyes widened, don't wrong an innocent person. I, Mew, never kill anyone. He was just asleep. Matt, the blood is flowing so much it's practically a river, and you call that sleeping? Mew curled his lip indifferently, besides, a gang leader is dead and that's it. This kind of person has ruined countless families. He wouldn't be enough to die 1,000 times. If he's handed over to the law, he'll only be locked up for a few decades at most. If we hire a team of lawyers who charge exorbitant fees, we might be able to get him released early. Matt gritted his teeth. As a lawyer, he knew that Mew was right. Regardless of his identity, his crimes should be judged by the law. Matt insisted. Mew suddenly asked, what if he killed your friend? Would you still insist on handing him over to the law? Matt paused for a moment, then nodded and said, I believe the law will provide a fair resolution. What if I killed your friend? For example, that fat guy named Fudge. What will you do then? Mew's eyes became extremely serious, and a dangerous smile appeared on his lips. Matt's heart suddenly tightened. He could clearly hear Mew's steady heartbeat. This man was definitely not joking. He felt that as soon as he gave the answer, the other party might take action in the next second. Seeing Matt fall silent, Mew suddenly felt bored. Indeed, you'll never know pain until the blade cuts you. Without warning, a large knife appeared in his hand, and he swung it down at Hammerhead's neck. That puts it under 10 kilograms. Matt exclaimed in shock and anger, wait. You. Bye-bye, Attorney Matt. I'll hang out with you again sometime. Mew casually waved his hand, and his figure, along with the fresh head in his hand, vanished from the spot in an instant. In the cold alley, only Matt, speechless with shock, and the gruesome headless corpse on the ground remained. Thank you so much to reader for the reward and monthly pass. Thank you so much. End of this chapter. Chapter 13 Applying for Bodyguard. Chapter 13 Applying for Bodyguard. Mew, you have a new task. That day, Mew woke up in his 500 square meter luxury villa and received a call from Nick Fury. Don't ask why a level 5 SHIELD agent can afford such a big house. Back in Los Santos, he owned more than a dozen houses that were much bigger than this, so what was this compared to that? Nick Fury's voice came through the receiver, I need you to get close to Tony Stark and keep a close watch on his latest movements. This mission was originally intended for Black Widow, as she would have a relatively easy time getting close to Stark. However, she has an urgent mission that keeps her busy, so I have no choice but to entrust it to you. Mew had heard of the Black Widow that Fury mentioned. This colleague also maintains a 100% task completion rate, but his efficiency is not as high. It is said that Black Widow is a hot and beautiful woman with many fans in SHIELD. Mew even heard a fanatical agent say that he wanted to drink her bath water. With her looks and skills, using her charm on a playboy like Tony would be a piece of cake. The problem is Black Widow is unavailable right now, so wouldn't the person carrying out this honey trap be? Director, I'm an artist, not a prostitute. Mew blurted out. Nick Fury. What are you thinking about? I'm not asking you to sell yourself. As for how to get close to Tony Stark, that's your problem to solve. I only care about the results. NPC Nick Fury has given you a new mission. Mission, monitor Tony Stark. Objective, to infiltrate Tony Stark's inner circle, monitor all his actions, and report back to Nick Fury. Rewards: 1000 XP, SHIELD reputation plus 30, random item *1, random equipment *1. The rewards for missions related to Tony are really generous. It's basically confirmed that it was Mew. Tony Stark is definitely one of the main characters in this game, and he plays a very important role in the main storyline. After hanging up the phone, Mew began packing up to set off. If Black Widow were to carry out this mission, she would probably start with Stark Industries, find someone with falsified documents to apply for the job, and then use some means to replace Tony's female assistant. This way, she could get close to the other person under the guise of work. However, this method was immediately blocked for Mew because of the first hurdle, gender. Unless he identifies as a female, psychologically female man with a transvestite fetish. Moreover, Mew felt that the conventional route was too inefficient. So he decided to take a shortcut. 10880 Malibu Beach, California, a luxury beachfront home. Inside the underground laboratory, Tony was intently testing his latest masterpiece, the Mark III armor. Since his near-death experience in the Middle East, he has devoted himself to the research and development of steel armor. Compared to the Mark I built in the cave, his latest steel armor is more comprehensive. Most importantly, it can fly. Tony recalled the humiliating experience of running for his life that day and secretly vowed never to let history repeat itself. At the same time, he was also considering whether to attach a Gatling gun to his armor. The scene of Mew single-handedly wiping out the terrorists that day had really affected him. At that moment, the huge television screen hanging on the wall was broadcasting the news. Tonight, the red carpet is laid out outside Disney Concert Hall for Tony Stark's third generous donation to the Firefighters Families Fund, an annual event for Los Angeles high society. However, as of now, Tony Stark himself has not yet shown up. Tony frowned and asked his AI assistant, Jarvis, "Has someone invited us?" "There are no invitation records." Jarvis, the artificial intelligence, spoke. Meanwhile, the television news continued to broadcast. Given Tony Stark's shocking remarks at a recent press conference, some speculate that he may have suffered inhuman humiliation in the Middle East, resulting in psychological and physical trauma. Others speculate that the Tony Stark who has returned is not the real person. As Tony listened to the increasingly outrageous speculations in the news, his face grew darker and darker. What does it mean to suffer inhuman humiliation? What does it mean to suffer psychological and physical trauma? Tony gritted his teeth. Jarvis, find out which media outlet this is and buy it. Have them run my tabloid stories on repeat for a week. Emphasize my physical and mental health. Okay, sir. Also, contact Happy and have him send me to that damn charity gala right now. Happy is Tony's driver and bodyguard, and someone he trusts quite a bit. He's basically always with him. Sir, Mr. Happy has taken the day off, Jarvis reported. Hey? What's going on? Tony asked, somewhat surprised. According to Mr. Happy, he was attacked by an unknown force not long ago. Fortunately, he was unharmed and is currently under observation and treatment in the hospital. Attack. Upon hearing this, Tony frowned deeply. Who did this? Mr. Happy said the attacker was an unfamiliar male, characterized by black hair and black eyes, wearing a pink short-sleeved shirt and beach shorts. Tony felt a sense of bewilderment. He knew Happy well, he rarely made enemies. Why would someone attack him for no reason? Just as Tony was racking his brains, Jarvis's voice rang out again, Sir, an unregistered visitor has been detected at the main entrance of the mansion. Who? He was a man with black hair and black eyes, wearing a pink short-sleeved shirt and beach shorts. Tony, I think I've found the murderer. Tony sneered, fine, you've come to my doorstep. Bring in the outside surveillance footage. I'd like to see who it is. Sir, it seems that the visitor has already entered. Tony. The next moment, a large section of the ceiling above disappeared, and a lithe figure jumped down from the hole. Got you. A familiar conversation. Familiar picture. And people I know. Tony's face darkened completely when he saw Mew holding a diamond pickaxe, just like Nick Fury's. So it was you. Tony gritted his teeth. Haven't seen you for a long time. Mew greeted him very familiarly, as if he were just visiting a neighbor. His gaze swept over the virtual screen floating in front of Tony, which displayed a detailed model of the Mark III armor and complex data streams. The latest steel armor? It looks way cooler than that lump of iron from last time. Mew's eyes lit up. I want it. I want it. Tony's lips twitched, and he immediately told Jarvis to turn off the screen. He stared at Mew and asked, "What exactly are you doing here?" Mew chuckled and said, "I didn't realize I was here to apply for a bodyguard job." Tony. I had no idea until you pointed it out. Please vote, add to your favorites, and comment. End of this chapter. Chapter 14. Half a person might scare you to death. Chapter 14. Half a person might scare you to death. You? Applying for a bodyguard job. Tony looked at Mew with an absurd expression. Mew nodded, "That's right, you just happen to be short of a bodyguard, and I just happen to be short of an employer. What a coincidence." Tony rolled his eyes, too lazy to beat around the bush, and went straight to the point. "You're the one who injured Happy, aren't you?" Mew immediately widened his eyes. "You can't just say things like that. I've never seen your bodyguard. I never said Happy was my bodyguard." Tony felt a throbbing pain in his temples and asked irritably, "Why are you, a SHIELD agent, here to be my bodyguard?" Mew shrugged, "There's nothing we can do. Agents' salaries are too low, so they have to do side jobs to earn some extra money. Some agents even write online novels on the side, but after they stopped updating, readers located their addresses and came to their homes to break their legs. They're still lying in bed now. But that reader was recruited by our bureau. After all, there aren't many people like that anymore." Tony. What's all this mess? I don't need a new bodyguard, and besides, I have more than just Happy as a bodyguard, Tony said decisively. Jarvis interjected at the opportune moment, "Sir, let me correct you. Your other 12 bodyguards were also attacked and hospitalized this afternoon. The attackers all had the same characteristics, a man with black hair and black eyes, wearing a pink short-sleeved shirt and beach shorts." Tony stared at Mew, who looked completely innocent. Is this something a human being would do? Artificial intelligence? Mew was surprised by Jarvis's presence. Although artificial intelligence is already common in his time, and some people have even fallen in love with AI, he remembers that the timeline of this game is set in 2008, when artificial intelligence is quite rare. "Yes, sir, I am Mr. Stark's AI butler, Jarvis," Jarvis replied. "Could you switch to a more mature, older female voice?" Mew asked curiously. "No, Mr. Stark did not set any other voice for me. It's boring." Mew curled his lip, seriously suspecting that Tony had some kind of peculiar fetish. What normal man would set his AI butler to have such a magnetic British middle-aged man's voice? Tony took a deep breath. "I don't need bodyguards, I can manage on my own." "You sure?" Mew raised his eyebrows and said with a smile, "Don't blame me for not reminding you, those stock market investors outside would love to chop you into 8 pieces right now. They are much more ruthless than those terrorists. They might even chop off your little brother and make soup with him." Tony's expression froze instantly. He paused for 2 seconds, then almost gritted his teeth as he squeezed out the words, "Congratulations, you've been hired." "Okay, boss." Mew grinned. In Los Angeles, the Disney concert hall is brightly lit and covered with a red carpet. Countless media reporters, armed with cameras and microphones, vied to interview the socialites walking the red carpet, their flashes going off one after another. Just then, a deep and extremely imposing engine roar came from afar, instantly drowning out the noise at the scene. A silver-grey luxury sports car came from a distance and sped toward the red carpet entrance at an astonishing speed. Just when everyone thought it would lose control and crash into the guardrail, the sports car suddenly executed a clean, almost arrogant, drift, its tires screeching as it came to a steady stop at the starting point of the red carpet. A sharp-eyed reporter immediately recognized the car's model and its owner. "It's Tony Stark." "Oh my God! Tony Stark actually came. Quick! Point the camera over there. Stop filming those two damn fake balls. Film Tony Stark." The gasps of surprise instantly ignited the press area. All the cameras and flashes, like sharks smelling blood, turned in unison towards the sports car. It's important to understand that Tony Stark is undoubtedly a traffic magnet these days, his topicality and public attention far surpassing that of any celebrity or political official. His appearance immediately made him the center of attention. Soon, Tony got out of the car and straightened his suit. However, his face looked somewhat pale, and his steps seemed a little unsteady. Mew got out of the driver's seat, closed the car door, looked at Tony and shook his head. "You seem a bit weak. You can't even handle this speed. Who the hell would speed at over 200 km per hour in the city?" Tony suppressed the churning in his stomach and the dizziness, roaring wildly in his mind. He vowed that he would never ride in Mew's car again in his entire life. Tony tried to remain calm, pretending not to hear Mew's words, and walked towards the concert hall entrance with slightly unsteady steps. At the entrance, he encountered a burly, bald man. This man was the second largest shareholder of Stark Industries and an old friend of his father, Obadiah Stanislav. "The host isn't here, what are the guests doing here? Look who's here. Isn't this our hottest topic of conversation?" Upon seeing Tony's arrival, Stanislav wore a seemingly amiable smile, but his eyes flickered uncertainly. At that moment, Stanislav's gaze fell on Mew, who was standing next to Tony. Beforehand, Mew knew he was going to attend a banquet, so he changed into a well-tailored pure white suit. Equipment: charming suit, a very handsome suit that will greatly enhance your charm. With this suit, Mew, whose appearance was already no less than that of the readers, appeared exceptionally dazzling. His brilliance even made those around him pale in comparison, almost overshadowing Tony beside him. As for why it's almost? There's no way around it. Tony has the powerful aura of a billionaire on his side, and no amount of charm can overshadow him. Stannis stared at Mew, whose outstanding demeanor shone even brighter than the celebrities around him, and secretly guessed that the other man's identity was definitely not simple. Thinking they might know each other, he asked Tony, "And this gentleman is?" "My new bodyguard." Stannis looked completely bewildered. Is the bodyguard industry this cutthroat these days? Tony was clearly not interested in explaining further. After exchanging a few perfunctory words with Stanislavski, he led Mew into the concert hall. As Tony entered the concert hall, he immediately spotted his female assistant, Potts, who was talking to someone while holding a wine glass. "Up to you." Tony tossed Mew a sentence and then walked straight to Potts, where they started an office romance in front of everyone. As expected of Tony, who is known as a playboy, his flirting skills are absolutely top-notch. Mew looked at the two who were almost in perfect harmony and shook his head, indicating that he couldn't learn it. Before the game started, he was a single guy. He was not bad-looking, but he just couldn't find a partner, and he still can't figure out why. At this moment, a blonde woman in a beautiful dress noticed Mew and walked over with a charming smile on her face. "Hey, did you come alone?" "Nonsense, half a person would scare you to death." Please vote, add to your favorites, and comment. End of this chapter. Chapter 15 Voluntary Overtime. Chapter 15 Voluntary Overtime. In the following days, Mew became Tony's bodyguard, appearing at his seaside mansion on time every day to report on the situation. Tony was initially reluctant. Until the day before yesterday, a few stock market investors, driven mad by the stock market crash, somehow broke through the basic security of the mansion, brandishing kitchen knives and barging into the living room, shouting that they would chop up little Tony and make soup from him. If Mew hadn't appeared like a divine soldier and subdued those lunatics in no time, Tony would have almost become Tony. From then on, he became completely obedient and even took the initiative to ask Mew for protection. I can give up my life, but Tony absolutely cannot be hurt. Mew, I've gotten the person out of the water. You can continue your undercover mission with peace of mind. Village Chief, I've always trusted you to get things done. My name is Cowlson. Okay, Village Chief, no problem, Village Chief, goodbye Village Chief. Mew abruptly hung up on Cowlson. Yes, those few crazy stock market investors were actually SHIELD agents that Mew had invited to make a cameo appearance. Otherwise, how could an ordinary person so easily break into the home of a top billionaire? To be fair, those SHIELD agents were really good actors, they almost gave Tony a psychological trauma. Mew even suspected that they might have done some part-time jobs, such as acting or playing minor roles, in addition to receiving salaries from SHIELD. At this moment, Mew was lounging comfortably in the high-end sofa in the living room, which could be used as a bed, with his legs crossed. He was using a remote control to switch TV channels while enjoying a steaming hot pizza with the other. He looked so relaxed that it was as if he were the owner of this mansion. Tony had just finished debugging the Mark III in the underground lab and came up, smelling of engine oil and exhausted, only to see this scene. He was furious, especially when he saw that Mew was eating the pizza he had ordered. Did they hire a bodyguard or some kind of VIP? Give me a piece. Tony unceremoniously snatched a large slice of pizza from Mew's hand and took a big bite. Mew didn't seem to care at all, and instead asked curiously, "You've got your armor sorted out?" He knew that Tony had been in seclusion these past few days, focusing all his attention on tinkering with the Mark III in the underground laboratory. Of course. Tony flashed his signature confident smile, but then, recalling the harrowing moment from the day before, he added with a hint of defiance, "If those lunatics hadn't suddenly barged in that day, giving me no time to put on my armor, you wouldn't have had a chance to make a move." Mew chuckled, "Do you think you're invincible when you're wearing your armor? Who's so kind as to wait for you to slowly transform before making a move? I'll solve this problem very soon." Tony was taken aback. Although he felt that Mew's words made sense, his pride as a genius kept him stubborn to the end. He quickly finished his pizza, wiped his hands, and his expression suddenly turned serious. "By the way, there's something I need your help with." "What's the matter? Do you remember that batch of Stark Industries weapons I asked you to blow up back in the Middle East?" Tony asked in a deep voice. Mew nodded, "I remember, you ran so fast back then, your pants almost fell down, it was hilarious." Tony. He suppressed the urge to slam the pizza box on Mew's head and said to himself, "I suspect that someone within Stark Industries is colluding with terrorists and secretly conducting arms deals. I need you to go to Stark Industries headquarters for me, sneak into my office, and use this hacking tool on my personal computer to copy down all the recent weapon loadouts." With that, Tony handed a small silver USB drive to Mew. "NPC Tony Stark has given you a new quest. Mission: The Mole within Stark Industries. Objective: infiltrate Stark Industries headquarters, hack into Tony Stark's personal computer, copy all recent weapon loadouts, and deliver them to Tony Stark. Rewards: 500 experience points, Tony Stark's favor ability plus 10, random item *1. Why don't you go yourself? Isn't that your territory?" Mew asked, puzzled. Tony sighed helplessly, because I unilaterally announced the closure of the weapons department, which seriously damaged the interests of the board of directors, they have joined forces to issue me a ban, temporarily prohibiting me from entering the company headquarters to participate in any affairs. Now I can't even get through the door. Then why don't you talk to your female assistant? No, this mission is too dangerous. I'm afraid Potts will be targeted by the mastermind and retaliated against. I can't let her take this risk. Do Mew. So you're making me take this risk, right? New York, Stark Industries headquarters building. As Du Mew entered the lobby on the first floor, he saw many employees in business attire passing by. Guards were stationed all over the building, and the security measures were visibly tight. Tony's office is located on the top floor of the building and can only be reached via a specially authorized elevator. Although Tony gave him an access card, how to get directly to the top floor via elevator in full view of everyone was still a problem. There are too many people, it's hard to make a move. Looking at the bustling scene before him, Du Mew temporarily suppressed a simplistic and impulsive thought. There's no other way, we have to use that. Having made up his mind, Du Mew turned around and went into the men's restroom on the first floor. He found a stall, locked the door, and then took out a flesh-colored hood from his game inventory. Item: disguise mask, can create any face. Once created, it will be permanently fixed and cannot be recreated. Du Mew put the disguise mask on his head. The mask felt cool to the touch and quickly conformed to the contours of his face after touching his skin. Soon, the surface of the mask rippled like water, gradually revealing a person's facial features. This man was none other than Stanislav, whom Du Mew had met a few days ago. Immediately afterwards, Du Mew took out the bow tie voice changer he had acquired some time ago and put it on his collar. Perfect. Du Mew tidied his appearance, then, with Stanislavski's face on his back, pushed open the door and walked out of the restroom. Good afternoon, Mr. Stanislav. Upon seeing Du Mew, passing employees stopped and greeted him respectfully. I have to say, it feels really great. Du Mew immediately adopted the demeanor of a boss, cleared his throat, and used a voice changer to imitate Stanislavski's voice, saying, Hello, everyone, thank you for your hard work. The employees were taken aback. Why does Stanislavski seem different today than usual? They quickly replied, It's not hard work at all. Du Mew nodded, Well, since it's not hard work, everyone can volunteer to stay and work overtime today. I believe in your loyalty and enthusiasm for the company. Employees. End of this chapter. Chapter 16 Boss Event has officially begun. Chapter 16 Boss Event has officially begun. Under the resentful gazes of the migrant workers, Du Mew strode confidently toward the elevator. The guards, seeing his Stanislavski-style face, naturally dared not question or stop him, allowing him to swipe his access card and enter the elevator without hindrance. With Stanislavski's identity perfectly concealed, Du Mew had a smooth journey and quickly arrived at Tony's luxurious office. He went straight to his desk, turned on the computer, and inserted the silver USB drive Tony had given him into the host interface. A prompt immediately appeared on the screen. Cracking security protocol. Crack successful, searching for hidden drives. Soon, a deeply encrypted hidden drive was unlocked, and a large number of confidential files were revealed. One video in particular stands out. It shows Tony being kidnapped by terrorists in the Middle East. According to the video, the mastermind behind the attack was none other than Tony's uncle, Stanislavski. Stanislavski not only had long-term arms dealings with terrorists, but also directly ordered the attack against Tony. Wow, is this the unvarnished workplace struggle in America? Du Mew exclaimed how wonderful it was, but the most wonderful part was yet to come. Stanislav somehow managed to collect the wreckage of the Mark I manufactured in the Middle East and secretly mobilized Stark Industries' top engineering team to reverse engineer it, with the goal of creating a suit of steel armor called the Ironmonger. Judging from the project progress and drawings in the documents, the development of this steel armor is nearing completion. After reviewing the document, Mew reported it to Nick Fury. Nick Fury paused for a moment, then said seriously, "The strategic significance and potential threat of Iron Man technology are too great. We absolutely cannot allow it to fall into the hands of ambitious people like Stanislavski, or any other forces with ulterior motives. I will immediately send Coulson to Stanislavski's research and development facility. SHIELD will take over and protect the facility and all its technologies." As for the place to protect, Nick Fury didn't say it explicitly, but his intention was obvious: to bring it back to SHIELD. There's nowhere safer than SHIELD. Whether others believed it or not, Mew believed it. After all, the Hydra were not to be trifled with. Following Nick Fury's instructions, Mew copied all the hidden files twice, then unplugged the USB drive and left the office. To his surprise, as soon as he opened the door, he saw a sexy woman in office attire walking towards him. "Mr. Stanislav, I heard you're back. There's an urgent grant application for an important research project that needs your signature for approval." Mew glanced at the man's attire and guessed he might be Stanislavski's assistant. He then took the documents the man handed him and began to read them. Good heavens, a whopping $50 million. Cough cough. Mew said sternly with a straight face, "This research project is temporarily put on hold. Transfer all the money into this account. I have a new project that needs funding even more." As he spoke, he took out a pen and paper, quickly wrote down his bank card information, and handed it to his beautiful assistant. The pretty assistant was clearly taken aback, and asked in confusion, "Shelved? Mr. Stanislav, this project has a very high priority." "What's your new project then?" "Graduate students are developing technology." OK. The beautiful assistant looked at Mew's bald head and understood everything. She then said, "By the way, you haven't forgotten what happened tonight, have you?" "What's the matter?" "Of course it's a date. Didn't we agree to have dinner together tonight?" The sexy woman licked her lips, revealing an alluring expression. Clearly, she was having a seafood feast tonight. Mew thought to himself, "Wow! Does Stark Industries' upper management have some kind of peculiar tradition? Why do they all seem to enjoy having office romances with their female assistants?" Mew replied dismissively, "Another day, my wife is home tonight." "You're lying. Mom clearly told me she went on vacation to Hawaii this week. Is your entertainment industry really that chaotic?" After much effort, Mew finally managed to shake off Stanislavski's female assistant, or rather, his daughter. He then returned to Tony's seaside mansion. "Jarvis, open the door." Mew called out habitually as he arrived at the mansion's gate. However, Jarvis did not respond. Mew immediately sensed something was wrong, quickly pulled out a diamond pickaxe from his game inventory, and began hacking at the wall next to him. The solid wall crumbled like tofu before the diamond pickaxe, instantly creating a large square hole. Mew crawled into the hall through the hole and saw a bloodless figure crawling darkly on the ground, its chest empty, which was quite frightening. "Holy crap, Kayako!" Mew exclaimed in surprise. The figure on the ground heard the voice and weakly said, "It's me, hurry. Help me get the reactor from the lab." "Tony." Mew recognized the voice. "All right, wait for me." He immediately picked up a diamond pickaxe, smashed through the floor, and jumped directly into the laboratory below. He quickly found the old-fashioned arc reactor that Tony had originally used, and immediately returned the way he came, leaping back into the living room from the hole. "Here. Catch." Mew tossed the reactor to Tony. Tony used his last bit of strength to catch it, as if grasping at a lifeline, and with trembling hands pressed the reactor into the hole in his chest. The light shone on his chest again, and Tony's pale face finally regained some color. His breathing gradually became steady, and he collapsed onto the floor, panting heavily. His clothes were already soaked with cold sweat. Phew! Thanks, buddy, you saved my life again, Tony said gratefully. Small things. Mew waved his hand dismissively and asked curiously, by the way, what happened to you? Where's your reactor? Tony's eyes instantly turned cold and furious, and he gritted his teeth as he said, it was Stanislav. He broke into my house and stole my new reactor. Mew then asked, then why aren't you wearing your armor? I don't have time. A hint of embarrassment flashed across Tony's face. This was the second time he had been attacked without wearing his Iron Man armor. Thinking of this, he said bitterly, damn it. I'll develop a suit of armor that can be worn close to the body and activated at any time. Perfect timing, I've also completed your task. Mew pulled out the silver USB drive and threw it at Tony. Stanny did everything, including ordering terrorists to kidnap you. The evidence is in here. Mission: the Stark Industries mole completed. Rewards: experience points plus 500, Tony's favor ability plus 10, item honest red bean bun. Item, honesty red bean bun. After eating the honesty red bean bun, you will uncontrollably tell the truth for 1 minute. That bastard! I'll make him pay. Tony took the USB drive, his face contorted with barely suppressed rage. He immediately reactivated the Jarvis system that Stanislav had shut down, then struggled to his feet and quickly headed for the underground laboratory to put on his Mark III armor. At the same time, the system's voice rang in Mew's mind. Attention players, the boss event has officially begun. Objective: defeat Ironmonger Obadiah Stanislav. Rewards: depend on the damage players deal to the boss, the higher the damage, the richer the rewards. A boss event. Mew's eyes lit up, and he immediately became excited. After playing this game for so long and defeating so many mobs, is it finally time for the real boss battle? End of this chapter. Chapter 17: The Incompetent Tony. Chapter 17: The Incompetent Tony. Late at night. Stark Industrial District, District 16. ASHIELD team led by Level 7 Agent Coulson quickly arrives at Stanislavski's secret research facility, ready to search for Iron Man armor technology. Just as the team began their search, 2 blinding white lights suddenly shone from the depths of the dark factory. With the hum of the hydraulic system in operation, a steel behemoth more than 3 meters tall was fully revealed before everyone's eyes, its cold metal shell exuding a suffocating sense of oppression. Fire! Coulson acted decisively, and he and the agents beside him raised their guns and fired without hesitation. A hail of bullets rained down on the Ironmonger armor, creating a continuous barrage of metallic clangs and sparks. However, these attacks, which were powerful enough to tear flesh apart, were like tickles to the Ironmonger, leaving only shallow white marks on its thick shell before being mercilessly repelled. Leave far away! Stannis's voice came through the armor, a piercing roar like metal scraping against metal. Before the words were even finished, the massive body of the Ironmonger armor suddenly started moving and slammed into the agent at the front. The agent had no time to dodge and was sent flying by the immense force, crashing heavily against the wall with a dull thud of breaking bones. His fate was unknown. Faced with this overwhelming power, the remaining agents instantly realized the vast difference in strength and immediately sought cover. Fortunately, Stanislavski's target was clearly not them. Ignoring the hiding agents, the Ironmonger armor smashed through the thick walls of the research and development factory and roared into the middle of the road. The people inside the vehicle were stunned by the sudden appearance of this steel behemoth. What is this? A miniature version of the Iron Giant? Panic only spread like a plague when the Ironmonger casually overturned the 100-ton queen that dominated the national highway. In an instant, piercing screams and chaotic honking filled the air. Stannis! Just then, a roar filled with rage ripped through the night sky. A golden red figure, accompanied by the shrill whistle of its thrusters, swooped down from the sky and crashed into the Ironmonger armored vehicle in the middle of the road. Bump! A deafening explosion ripped through the street. The two suits of steel armor collided violently, and the enormous impact caused them to lose their balance instantly. They rolled and rubbed uncontrollably on the asphalt road, sparks flying and lightning flashing in their wake, before finally coming to a stop after several tumbles. But the ironmonger armor quickly stood up. Its crimson mechanical eyes were fixed on the gold-red steel armor, and Stanislav inside instantly guessed who the pilot was. "Tony, what do you think? Do you like my new outfit?" Stanislav's voice came through the loudspeaker, full of arrogance and mockery. "Shut up, you imposter!" Tony felt a chill run down his spine. A genius like him could tell at a glance what kind of ironmonger armor it was. Isn't this the Mark I he knocked out of the cave? In terms of both shape and design, the ironmonger armor is a completely enlarged replica of the Mark I. Even more outrageous, the reactor that powers the ironmonger's chest armor was dug out of his body. What's the difference between this and face-to-face NTR? Tony, you are indeed a genius, but unfortunately, the ideas you come up with may not always be yours. As Stannis finished speaking, the right arm of the ironmonger armor suddenly rose, and the six-barreled Gatling gun on the arm guard began to spin wildly to preheat. Da-da-da-da-da. Countless bullets erupted, and Tony was forced to retreat repeatedly by the ferocious firepower. Tony gritted his teeth, bracing himself against the barrage of metal projectiles, and unleashed two energy blasts at the ironmonger armor, forcefully interrupting its attack. "Sir, energy level has dropped to 18%, Jarvis's voice announced from inside the steel armor. "I know." Tony's heart sank, and he knew he was in trouble. At this point, the reactor in his chest was the initial version, and it already had very little energy left. Although the Mark III was much more efficient than the Mark I, this amount of energy was not enough to sustain it for long. If this continued, the Mark III would soon become a pile of immobile scrap metal, and it would completely lose its ability to resist. Rumble. The heavy roar of the engine sounded again. Tony had just regained his footing when he saw the ironmonger armor stomping on the ground, charging towards him at a speed disproportionate to its size. "Damn it!" Tony cursed and hastily crossed his arms to protect his chest. Bang! With its overwhelming advantage in tonnage and impact force, the ironmonger armor easily lifted the Mark III off the ground. Tony felt as if he had been hit by a speeding train, and he crashed heavily onto the road more than 10 meters away, creating a shallow crater. Before he could even struggle to get up, the massive shadow of the ironmonger armor loomed over him, crushing him under its feet. Looking at Tony beneath his feet, Stanislav said smugly, "Tony, your armor isn't as good as mine." "Bullshit." At this moment, Tony was just like a helpless husband, completely powerless against Stanislavski, this evil bald man. Although in his eyes, the ironmonger armor was just a cheap imitation. However, it cannot be ignored that the ironmonger armor's defensive capabilities, built up by its tonnage and extremely thick armor, are indeed ridiculously strong. In the absence of sufficient energy supply, it would be almost impossible for the Mark III to break through its defenses. Tony felt an unprecedented sense of humiliation. Is there anything more painful than an original author being thoroughly humiliated by a plagiarist? The ironmonger released his foot and instead grabbed the Mark III, throwing it onto a bus some distance away. Stanislav, piloting the ironmonger, approached again with heavy steps. He looked at Tony, who was stuck in the bus, and said in an icy voice, "Listen, this company is something I built from scratch, and nobody can stand in my way, especially you." As he spoke, an anti-tank missile launcher rose from the shoulder of the ironmonger armor, locking onto Tony in front of him. Tony stared in surprise at the anti-tank missile aimed at him. What a familiar scene! The next moment, without the slightest hesitation, the anti-tank missile spewed flames from its tail and slammed straight toward Tony. Just as Tony was about to withstand the bombardment, a figure suddenly appeared in front of him, holding an ordinary frying pan, and smashed it at the anti-tank missile like a baseball. Clang! Boom! With a loud bang, the anti-tank missile exploded instantly, flames shot up rapidly, and a powerful shockwave spread outwards. As the dust settled, Mew stood unharmed before Tony, holding a frying pan. They didn't even call me when they were fighting a boss. Thank you so much, reader Jenny Pearl, for the generous donation. Thank you so much. End of this chapter. Chapter 18 TNT. Chapter 18 TNT, revised. Wadafa. Stanislav saw this through the ironmonger's video system and his eyes nearly popped out of their sockets. A frying pan actually blocked his anti-tank missile. Can anyone tell him the scientific principle behind this? Tony, a top scientist, said, I want to know too. Stanislav forced down the absurdity churning within him and stared at Mew, saying, I recognize you. You're Tony's bodyguard. Mew advised, Stanis, stop now. Your daughter is waiting for you to come home for dinner. Stanislav. No, how do you know about this? No matter who you are, anyone who gets in my way must die. Stanislav snorted and charged towards Mew in his ironmonger armor, raising his massive metal fist high and slamming it down on Mew. Mew nimbly rolled away from the attack, instantly creating a crater in the spot where he landed. Boom, 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 boom. Mew pulled out his golden desert eagle and fired continuously, the bullets sparking countless sparks as they hit the Iron Monarch armor. Ha ha ha! Useless! My ironmonger armor is invincible! Stanis laughed arrogantly, and the ironmonger armor immediately raised its arm, and the Gatling gun barrel started spinning again. Da-da-da-da-da! A dense storm of metal instantly formed and began to fire wildly at Mew. Mew immediately dodged with agility, running and rolling with fluid movements. His evasion skills were superb. These are all basic operations from playing Souls-like games before, positioning is already ingrained in his DNA. After Stanislav's volley of fire, he didn't even manage to brush against Mew's clothes. What's even more disgusting is that Mew kept making sarcastic remarks while dodging. An old lady was crossing the street, an old lady was doing square dancing, an old lady took a step back. Fuck you, you old lady! Stanis's blood pressure spiked rapidly, and his face visibly flushed. Stanis! Tony, of course, wouldn't just sit and watch. Seizing the opportunity, a row of miniature missiles rose from the Mark III's shoulder, instantly locking onto the target and launching. Boom! The violent explosion engulfed the ironmonger armor entirely, sending thick black smoke and flames soaring into the sky. But as the saying goes, smoking doesn't cause harm. Heavy metallic footsteps echoed as the ironmonger armor emerged from the flames unscathed, leaving not even a noticeable dent on its surface, only traces of blackening from the explosion. Mew jumped to Tony's side and whispered, "This boss's defense is a bit overpowered, it's much stronger than your armor." Tony, Damn it, I'm going to build an even bigger one when I get back. His tortoise shell is too thick. This can't go on. Tony, I have a plan. Mew suddenly said. What's the plan? Don't ask, I'll go make some preparations first. You try to stall Stanislavski as much as possible, then lure him to this place. Leave the rest to me, Mew said, pointing to a location in the suburbs. All right. Now that things have come to this, Tony has no choice but to trust Mew. Watching Mew turn and run away, Stanislav scoffed, "Tony, it seems your bodyguard has abandoned you. Is it like when your wife abandoned you? And then you found a second wife and even made her daughter your assistant? When it comes to sharp tongues, Tony has never been afraid of many people. Court death." Stanislav was instantly enraged, forgetting about Mew, and started fighting with Tony again. After a few rounds, Tony quickly fell into a disadvantageous position, getting thoroughly beaten down by the ironmonger armor, and his Mark III was reduced to a battle-damaged version. However, the shock absorption system of this steel armor is truly astounding. Logically speaking, even if the steel armor is incredibly tough, the human body inside would have been reduced to a pulp or suffered a severe concussion under such intense kinetic energy impact. However, aside from being dizzy from the shock, Tony remained energetic and unharmed, as if his Iron Man armor was his lifeline, and as long as it was intact, he wouldn't get hurt, similar to the clothes-tearing mechanic in some video games. Boom! Tony was sent flying by the Ironmonger armor for what felt like the umpteenth time. He immediately activated his hand thrusters to stabilize himself, hovering in midair in a slightly embarrassing girlish pose. Seeing this, Stanislav laughed wildly. "Not bad, you've improved it, but I've also made some improvements myself." As soon as he finished speaking, a dazzling burst of fire erupted from the solace of the Ironmonger armor, and its massive body wobbled and rose into the air. Plagiarist! Tony Stark was furious and ordered Jarvis to rush to the location Mew had mentioned. Stanislav followed closely behind, his legs shooting out like rockets, emitting large amounts of black exhaust fumes that caused serious environmental pollution. The two chased each other in the air and soon arrived at a place in the suburbs. Less than 5% of the energy remains. As soon as Tony landed, he heard Jarvis's voice. After such a long battle, the steel armor's energy was almost depleted. Where did Mew go? Could he have run away? Tony felt a surge of anxiety, but after looking around, he couldn't find Mew anywhere. Bang! Suddenly, Tony heard a heavy, loud thud behind him. Tony had just turned his head when he saw the Ironmonger armor lying behind him, and he quickly reached out and hugged him tightly. Stanislav sneered, "Tony, is this the grave you've chosen for yourself?" As he spoke, the Ironmonger armor gradually exerted force in its hands, unleashing a hug and sister attack, causing Mark III to groan in pain from the strain. Jarvis kept reporting, left arm severely damaged, most weapons inoperable, air conditioning system intact. Catapults! Tony roared, and the Mark III's legs instantly spewed out a large amount of fire, forcing the Ironmonger armor to release its grip and barely manage to break free. Energy remaining at 2%, activate emergency backup power, Jarvis's voice rang out again. Oops! Tony's secret passage is not good. As its energy was depleted, the Mark III lost most of its functions, leaving only its most basic mobility. Stanislav Steiner had recovered by then. Looking at the dimly lit Mark III, he immediately understood what had happened and said sarcastically, "How ironic, Tony. You said you wanted to eliminate the weapons, but you ended up creating even more powerful ones. Now, you will die from the weapons you created." Stanislav, maneuvering the Ironmonger armor, approached Tony, preparing to send his nephew to meet his dead father. Suddenly, a voice came from afar. "Hey, look here." Stannis immediately looked toward the source of the sound and saw that Mew was carrying an RPG rocket launcher and pointing it at him. Stanislav scoffed dismissively, "You think this thing can damage my armor? If one isn't enough, how about 100? Before Stanislav could think it through, Mew decisively pulled the trigger. "Call out!" The rocket, trailing a fiery exhaust, hurtled straight towards Stanislavski's feet. Boom! The violent explosion instantly tore the ground apart. Stannis felt his feet sink into the ground, and the Ironmonger armor immediately lost its balance and began to fall uncontrollably downwards. Amidst the billowing smoke and dust, Stanislav was shocked to find himself in a vast underground space. The surrounding clods of earth and rocks were strange, forming perfectly regular cubes with obvious signs of excavation. At the bottom of this enormous pit, countless identical red and white cubes were scattered about, flashing with rapid white light. 3 glaring letters were clearly printed on it. TNT. End of this chapter. Chapter 19 Who pilots a mech without a helmet? Chapter 19 Who pilots a mech without a helmet? Edited. Rumble. A terrifying explosion suddenly rang out, and the ground shook and cracked violently. Tony ran frantically outside, yelling at Mew, who was also fleeing for his life, "How many bombs did you plant?" "Not many, only about 100. Tony suddenly felt like he was being hunted down by his dead memories. Back before the Mark III was even born, he was running like this, risking his life. Now that the Mark III has been built, things are finally getting better, I can finally run around in the Mark III. Fortunately, this explosion was less powerful than the last one, and it occurred deep underground. After the two ran for more than 100 meters, the shockwave finally subsided. Looking back, a giant crater tens of meters in diameter was clearly visible on the ground. Tony reached the edge of the pit, staring at the smoke-filled abyss, his lips twitching. This time he should finally be dead, right? Mew glanced at the task panel. "No, not yet." Boom! Before he finished speaking, a tattered suit of steel armor suddenly jumped out from the bottom of the pit. The ironmonger armor was in terrible condition at that moment. Under the repeated bombardment of TNT, even its formidable defenses could not withstand it. Its body was covered with cracks and damage, and even the central cockpit was blasted open, revealing Stanislavski's disheveled state inside. "Didn't expect it. I'm back." Stanis laughed wildly, filled with the relief of escaping death. Tony was immediately shocked. How come it can't be killed by such an explosion? Does that mean the bigger the mech, the stronger it is? He instinctively raised his right arm to fire the energy cannon, but it showed that there was not enough energy. Seeing this, Stanislav grinned cruelly, "Haha! Now you're finally out of options, aren't you? Now it's..." Boom! A sharp gunshot interrupted his declaration. Stanis's smile froze instantly, and blood slowly seeped from a clear hole in his forehead. Mew expressionlessly put away the golden desert eagle in his hand and shook his head. "Who pilots a mecha without wearing a helmet?" Tony was stunned and couldn't come to his senses for a long time. He never expected that Stanislavski would end up in such a comical way. Mew ignored the bewildered Tony, his attention was drawn to the system information that had surfaced in his mind. "You have successfully defeated the boss Ironmonger Obadiah Stanislav. Start calculating damage rewards. Rewards are as follows: 10,000 experience points, 5 free attribute points, equipment 3,000 to kill you, item universal key, item red mushroom, item blue pill, equipment BT-7274 Vanguard Titan. Equipment, 3,000 killers, a super weapon overlord combining 10 different killing weapons. Item, master key, you can open any door, and you can also steal someone else's Wi-Fi. Item, red mushroom, eating it will make you grow bigger. Item, blue pill, eat it and you'll grow bigger. Mew. It doesn't seem like anything serious. However, his gaze was quickly fixed on the last item. Equipment, BT-7274 Vanguard Titan. Effect, the 4th generation Vanguard class Titan mech possesses advanced artificial intelligence and can cooperate with its pilot through neural links. It is equipped with a variety of powerful weapon systems, including high-speed cannons, missile launchers, and energy weapons. It also boasts excellent mobility and a robust defense system, and can automatically repair and absorb energy for replenishment. Commentary, Agreement 3, Protecting the Chariot. Mecha. Mew's eyes lit up, and a huge surprise welled up in his heart. The reward includes a complete mech. Moreover, judging from the description, its performance seems to be in no way inferior to Tony and Stanislav's Iron Man armor. If Tony hadn't been watching closely, Mew would have summoned him to study him. Bang! As Stanislavski's life came to an end, the out-of-control Ironmonger armor crashed to the ground. Tony finally snapped out of his daze, glanced at Stanis's body with a complicated expression, and said in a low voice, "I really considered him family. I never imagined it would end like this." Mew shrugged, his daughter probably thinks the same way. Tony. Not long after, accompanied by the sharp screech of brakes, Carlson and his SHIELD team arrived at the scene. Coulson looked at the two speechlessly. I have to say, your spots are always exceptionally easy to find. You can't blame me. Tony claims he's innocent, and that he's always the victim. After learning what had happened, Coulson directed his team to clean up the scene. His gaze swept over the wreckage of the Ironmonger, and he asked in confusion, "There's something wrong with this armor, where's the reactor on its chest?" "Gone." Tony was taken aback and immediately strode forward to check. Sure enough, the chest area of the Ironmonger armor was empty. The reactor that Stanislav stole from him had disappeared, even though he could still see it there. Tony immediately turned his head and looked at Du Mu, the most suspicious person on the field. Feeling that scrutinizing gaze, Du Mu felt that his pure dignity had been greatly humiliated. "Why are you looking at me? I didn't steal it." He definitely didn't steal it. "I just forgot to turn off the auto pickup function." The following day, Stark Industries held a press conference. "In fact, I am Iron Man." Tony's single sentence ignited a nationwide frenzy and forced the entire SHIELD department to work overtime to clean up the mess he left behind. Even Nick Fury developed dark circles under his eyes from staying up late, but luckily his complexion is dark, so it wasn't noticeable. "Agent Du Mu, your surveillance mission is now complete. Tony Stark will hand it over to Black Widow for follow-up contact and assessment." Nick Fury's voice came through the phone, hoarse from staying up all night. The system prompt sounds at the right time. "Mission survey Tony Stark complete. Rewards, 1000 XP, 30 SHIELD reputation, Hive Tech smoke grenade, looping missile. Item, Hive Technology smoke bomb, releases a large amount of smoke, making escape easier. Equipment, loitering munition, launches a controllable loitering munition that explodes, scattering 4 bombs. Should we block the bridge? We're missing 2. Good guy. Shouldn't we go to the Space Center to test the results?" Du Mu thought to himself. Then Nick Fury's voice rang out again, "I have an urgent mission for you now. In the past month, the Bronx has reported multiple missing persons cases, with the total number of missing persons exceeding 100, including local residents and visitors. Based on the initial assessment, the incident may have some unusual characteristics, and I need you to go and investigate. NPC Nick Fury has given you a new mission. Mission: investigate missing persons. Objective: to determine the cause of the missing person's disappearance. Rewards: 500 XP, SHIELD reputation plus 10, random equipment *1. I wasn't entirely satisfied with the first 2 chapters, but after revising them all night, I'm finally done. Those of you who read them last night can refresh the page to check them out." End of this chapter. Chapter 20 Vampire. Chapter 20 Vampire. Night falls. Guided by the mission, Du Mu arrived at a bar in the Bronx. Survey? No need at all, the game's quests will directly provide clues. Following the conspicuous red line in his line of sight, Du Mu quickly spotted a brown-haired man dressed in flashy clothes with slicked-back hair. At that moment, the brown-haired man was flirting with a girl whose arms and neck were covered in runes. As he spoke, he inadvertently revealed the fake gold watch on his wrist. The rune girl's eyes lit up instantly, and she immediately put down her almost untouched beer and drunkenly moved closer to him. The brown-haired man chuckled, casually put his arm around the rune girl's waist, which was as thick as an ironmonger helmet, and turned to leave the bar. This guy really isn't picky about food. Du Mu was amazed by what he saw and immediately followed quietly. The brown-haired man, with the rune-wearing girl in his arms, turned into a narrow, dark alleyway with practiced ease and stopped in front of an inconspicuous iron gate. He knocked on the door, and soon a burly man opened it to greet him. The brown-haired man said a few words in a low voice, and the burly man nodded, stepped aside to let them in, and then closed the iron gate. Seeing this, Du Mu followed suit and knocked on the iron gate. The burly man reappeared, and upon seeing Du Mu's completely unfamiliar face, he immediately frowned. What's the matter? I just saw my friend being led inside by a strange man, and I need to go in to find her. This is a members-only place, you can't come in. The burly man looked coldly at Du Mu and decisively refused. Du Mu said angrily, damn it, that's my friend. Even though she drinks, has tattoos, and hooks up with women, I know she's a good girl. What if she gets seduced by that guy? The burly man's lips twitched. Are you sure someone actually wants that Rune Poppy's body? If you don't let me in, I'll call the police. Du Mu threatened on the spot. Upon hearing this, a fierce glint flashed in the burly man's eyes, followed by a barely perceptible hint of crimson. All right, then I'll make an exception and let you in. The burly man pushed open the iron gate and looked at Du Mu as if he were looking at a dead man. Du Mu walked in without any hesitation. Inside the door was a long, dimly lit corridor, illuminated only by a few scattered lights. At the end of the road, there was another iron gate. This time it was a bald gatekeeper who reached out and blocked Du Mu's path, waving a fluorescent stamp in his hand. Fortunately, Du Mu was not allergic to fluorescent stamps like Zhang Wei, and allowed the other party to stamp his hand. Pushing open the last iron door, a strong smell of alcohol mixed with the stench of marijuana immediately hits you, while powerful electronic music assaults your eardrums. The huge dance floor occupied most of the space, and dazzling colored spotlights flashed wildly overhead to the rhythm, with countless figures twisting and turning below. In the booths at the edge of the dance floor, the lighting was even more ambiguous and hazy. Men and women were drinking strong liquor, puffing out thin cigarettes between their fingers, and some were even performing a bunch of pixelated scenes without regard for others, which brought a great shock to Du Mu's pure and young heart. Du Mu discovered that the red line guiding the mission had disappeared, indicating that the clues were in this underground bar. A woman with long, red, wavy hair noticed the fluorescent stamp on the back of Du Mu's hand. Her eyes lit up, and she immediately swayed over. Hey, handsome, can we get to know each other? Du Mu lowered his head, and what he saw was a dizzying abyss, which immediately filled him with awe. Of course, I love making friends the most. The red-haired man with long, wavy hair suddenly twitched his nose and frowned in confusion. You seem to smell of blood. What do you do for a living? Doctor. Du Mu remained expressionless and answered casually. Oh? That's great. Her red, wavy hair and bright eyes shone even brighter. Her fingers lightly traced Du Mu's chest, her expression full of allure, and her body brushed against him almost imperceptibly. I've been feeling a bit unwell lately. Can you help me figure out what's wrong with me? Du Mu was not a doctor, but he still recognized the symptoms of red, wavy hair at a glance. This is absolutely typical of being horny. Oh no, I mean having a fever. Du Mu feigned modesty and said, it's not very convenient to see from here, is it? It's all right, we can find a place to take our time and look at it carefully from all angles, the red-haired man with long, wavy hair whispered in Du Mu's ear. It looks like he has a really high fever. Du Mu was a shy man and didn't know how to refuse other people's invitations, so he could only let the red-haired man with long waves of hair pull him toward the corner restroom. Upon entering the cubicle, the red-haired woman with long, wavy hair immediately locked the door behind her. Doctor, where would you like to begin the examination? The red-haired, wavy-haired man stuck out his tongue and licked his lips, his eyes filled with the excitement of a predator. That depends on where you feel unwell. Feeling the incredible pressure coming from his arm, Du Mu glanced at the red dot on the minimap and wondered if he should pretend to give up. That's my stomach, of course. I'm starving. The red-haired man's voice suddenly became hoarse and distorted, his eyes bursting with a terrifying scarlet light, and his mouth grinned, revealing two ferocious sharp fangs. Her once beautiful face instantly turned hideous, and she lunged at Du Mu like a monster. Seeing this, Du Mu immediately lost interest. Thai boxing warning. Just as the fangs were about to touch the skin, Mew suddenly exerted force with his waist and delivered a powerful elbow strike to the face of the red-haired, wavy-haired man. Bang! A muffled thud was accompanied by the soft sound of bones breaking. The red-haired woman with big waves felt an unimaginable force explode from her cheekbone, and several broken teeth mixed with blood and foam flew out of her mouth. Before she could even scream, she was lifted off the ground like a tattered sack, crashing heavily against the wall of the cubicle with a loud thud, making the wall vibrate. The red-haired man with long, wavy hair collapsed to the ground, dizzy and disoriented. Half of his face visibly slumped down, and his scarlet eyes were filled with confusion. Who am I? Where am I? What am I doing? Mew put away his elbow, stepped forward, and looked down at him, demanding in a stern voice, "Speak. What kind of monster are you? I should be the one asking you this question." The red-haired, wavy-haired man stared at Mew in horror. The power displayed by her opponent was completely beyond her comprehension. A single blow rendered her utterly incapable of fighting. Was this something a human could do? Don't say yes. Mew showed no mercy to the woman, grabbing the limp red-haired woman with one hand and unleashing a barrage of elbow strikes with the other. The red-haired man with big waves initially wanted to speak, but each time he was about to say something, a fierce elbow strike forced him back down. With a barrage of elbow strikes, the red-haired man with wavy hair felt like his head was about to be smashed flat. Driven by her powerful survival instinct and willpower, she endured a brief moment between elbow strikes, and with her last strength, she cried out in anguish, "Stop hitting me! I'll tell you! I'm a vampire! I'm a vampire!" End of this chapter.